There you go. Silent.
Welcome back to the Bourbon BS podcast, everyone. I'm Steve Crane, joined by Spencer Lappin and Bobby Crow. Welcome back, gentlemen. Welcome back to the garage.
Thank you for having us, man.
And anyone in the audience, turn down your speaker. That's a rookie move, man. We've got a live audience. Happy to see everything opening back up, guys. I do want to thank everyone for tuning in each week. I'm still getting used to this, honestly, having you guys back in the garage. It was kind of nice being by myself.
I thought you just missed me from Ohio.
No,
In Ohio.
Not at all. What's going on, guys? Very talkative tonight, I can tell. This is great.
No, man,
Good start.
It's good to be back, man. It's like a surreal moment. I mean, we haven't been back here, at least I haven't been back here for 3 months. So it's very cool to be back in here.
Yeah.
So thank you for having us.
All right. It's my pleasure. Bobby, welcome back.
No, it's been fun. I've been in Ohio for the last 2 weeks now, so it's like I never missed a beat. So
Yeah.
it's like I almost like went through vacation with COVID, coming back here because I wasn't like.
It's an interesting way to state that.
Well, it is because it's like I wasn't here, but I couldn't travel if I was here. So
Yeah.
It's like
Fair.
I never missed a beat.
Yeah, I got you. So I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton, for providing a cigar. We are smoking tonight the My Father. It is kind of the original name of the My Father Cigar Company, Don Pepin and his son, the Garcia family. One of my favorites from back in the day. I'm happy we're doing this. We're doing it kind of in, I guess, inspiration from being Father's Day coming up. So happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys have some good plans, whether it be having some family time or if you're just having a day to yourself. I think it's great if you guys are able to spend time or at least talk to your fathers. I strongly encourage that. I'm going to be visiting mine at the cemetery. So if you guys have lost your fathers, I encourage you guys to go and have a moment with that if you can, or with your family, your mom, if they're still around, stuff like that. Also, Altadis USA. Appreciate the support. We've got a Monte Cristo White Series for the second cigar. Bobby, you were saying last night when we were talking, you wanted to have a milder cigar to try with this Duke as well.
Yes.
So we'll have to save some of this for part 2, and we'll have that with Monte Cristo White. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also Cigar Company for supporting the gold and silver is available. I do want to throw out too the Tinder Box we're doing the My Father. We have a My Father special at Tinder Box at Easton. So check out the Tinder Box page so that we can get you guys, if you're in the Columbus area, you can come and grab that. It's 5 cigars. It's got the My Father. It's got the La Opulencia, the Le Bijou, the Judge, Flor de las Antillas, and I think that's it. I don't know if I said 5. Is that 5? That was 5. And it's gonna be 20% off. So we don't really do many specials. And I know there's not a lot of specials out there on the My Father brand, so it's kind of nice to be able to do that.
I feel like you do a special every week, Steve.
Not on the My Father brand.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. So I definitely want you guys to check that out.
Like Buddy's carpet, man.
That's right.
Was the BS still on special this week or no?
The BS is not on special any longer. Now it's the My Father one. So tell me, we got Bobby. You're in from Texas, and you brought the Duke, legendary Duke. What are we drinking tonight? What'd you bring us?
So I was in Dallas. I was basically just driving towards Total Wines down there, and it's very hard. It's like just hard to find anything in Dallas. I find more stuff in Ohio than I actually find in Dallas. So I was just like going through one of the cases, and I'm like, wait, I've never seen this bottle. And I was like, it had a misprice on it. I actually paid like $80 for it.
You paid $80 for it?
$80 for it. I think the retail is like $140 on it because they had it mislabeled in a whole different place. And I was like, I looked up the reviews and saw it was one of the a rare one from his collection. And I was like, I have to bring it up here. So
I'm glad you did. Why don't you crack it, actually?
Ah.
Spencer, how have you been since the last time you were on the podcast?
I'm good, man. Things have been starting to open up. You know, I'm in sales. So I was in West Virginia last week, was in Kentucky a little bit this week. And it's just, you know, I think everyone's just kind of living in different worlds. What's happening in Ohio is different than what's happening in West Virginia, different than what's happening in Kentucky.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think I mentioned when we sat down, if you have told me that 3 weeks ago that we'd be sitting here having a cigar, I know Bobby was saying that things were a lot different in Texas. It seems like the world has changed, at least aesthetically, in the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think everything's different in Texas usually, though.
Bigger.
It's bigger in Texas. I find much the same, actually, is that it's very interesting that I'm not quite ready here. I'm still doing the pregame here. You guys can enjoy it for a second. All right, pour myself one in your glass. That's fine. No, I found that it's very different. We've noticed it at least in the retail area and at Easton, that again about 20% of people probably are wearing masks right now. And coming in, I actually had a very interesting. Had a customer, Brian Granger. He came in, and so I had been throwing on the mask when people are coming in with masks, trying to make them feel comfortable.
Well, I met you in a parking lot a few weeks ago, and you met me with a mask, and I had my mask on in a parking lot.
True.
Yeah. Is that kind of standard practice over there?
Not anymore. No, because that was back in like early May or late April, if I recall. But no, now I actually had a customer say to me that he's like, we walked in, I still had the mask on, and he's like, wait a second, are you sick? And so it was almost like his perception was, if I'm wearing a mask, that means that I've got COVID or had it or something like that. It's really interesting to me that the perception of people is that if I have a mask on, you should be more nervous for some people. But I know the majority is the opposite, that they want to have it on out of precaution. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting that was, thank you. I will grab that.
You know, there are no rules to this thing. Everyone's kind of handling it differently. Every state's handling it differently. I think, you know, you just kind of want to respect people that may be more vulnerable to it. And, you know, I think you guys got into it a few weeks ago, but, you know, the goal of the whole thing is just to protect, you know, the vulnerable people of the population if we can.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, we actually talked about one of the late night podcasts, like the podcast after the podcast
with
Ray. And it's like, it's not a normal thing in the States to be wearing a mask, but like if you go to any part of like any Asian countries or any of those any other culture areas, like if you are not feeling good, they wear a mask,
right?
Or it's pollution or any of those things. So it's like, to me, it doesn't bug me if you wear a mask or don't wear a mask. I just think it's just they're not used to having that in their environment.
I was coming back from Mexico City from a wedding like the first week of March, and we started to notice just a couple people wearing them at the airport. And it was shocking to see people wear masks at an airport in Mexico and in the United States. But now I'm like, man, I don't even know if I want to hop on a plane right now. It's just a whole different thing in 2 months, 3 months, whatever. But it might swing back in a couple months too.
Yeah, we don't know. I don't know. I think that it's just everyone's exhausted with it. And I think that's probably part of this, is that everyone just wants to get out there and get back to it. I've been seeing more articles about the fact that it's like, people are just tired of it, and they are doing this with no real caution to it, which, for better or worse, I don't know. We don't know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
I think Ed made a good point on the
that
comments.
I look better. I saw that. Steve looks better in mask. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's harder to smoke a cigar with a mask on. I know that I'm just tired of it. I'm happy to have you guys. Not impossible. All right, so let's talk about Legendary Duke. This is Grand Cru Founders Reserve. You already talked about the price. I know, Nate, you looked this up, and you've looked it up, Bobby, correct? Yes. I mean, this is something that, first off, it is got the name John Wayne on there. So that is the camp it's coming out of, right?
It's so it is a special bottle that is made by, it's actually endorsed by John Wayne. Mm-hmm. It's their actual spirit company. It is a 9-year, it's 110 proof. It's actually, I've never had it until today, and I'm really enjoying it. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts before I kind of get into it, because I just want to. It has a lot of different notes in it.
So it's
did
bottled.
You get cherry at all in that?
Yeah, do you do that? So it's bottled by Duke Spirits, right, in Owensboro, Kentucky. Do we know? Is this sourced? Do we know that?
Where's John Wayne from?
That I don't know.
Hey Siri.
Yeah.
Where's John Wayne from?
So just kind of briefly going into the whiskey. So I don't
cherry,
get too
hint of cherry,
but I don't get too much heat on the front end. I don't get too much heat on the back end. A little bit kind of mid palate, but nothing too crazy. I think that this is a relatively easy sipper for 110. Notes wise, I'd probably have to get into it a little bit more just with the cigar, but first taste, it's a good whiskey.
We were sipping on the Four Roses Small Batch Select before this. This is a lot more mellow, for sure.
Agree. It's kind of like a step down from that as far as that.
Yeah.
It's that vanilla and caramel taste in the beginning that gives it that smooth, like mellow taste to me.
Yeah.
And then it has that oakiness in the middle. And then I think it just pairs well with this cigar because
Disappears a little bit.
it just disappears. And for 110 proof, usually you're going to have a little bit more heat. I don't taste that heat on it at all.
I don't get much. I get a little bit more of a finish. I'm trying to like second sip after having, again, that when you have something that I think is, and it wasn't that much hotter. I think the Four Roses small batch select. Nate, do you still have that bottle over there? It's up there. I think it's like 53%. So, I mean, it's not really any hotter. I don't know if you can see it. It's at the bottom there.
I think it's just maybe a little newer.
Maybe. Yeah, this is the 9 years. So, yeah, what we were drinking, sipping on, 52%. So 104 proof. Now we're going up in proof. But I tell you, it seems like
it went down.
Yeah, it's definitely smoother.
For a 9 year, usually I would expect this out of a 12 or like maybe a 15 year for how smooth it is.
Yeah.
I don't get that much oak in this one personally. Now I get a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's overpowering or anything like that.
Yeah. So the reason it's the Grand Cru, I don't know if you really talked about this much here, but so it says Duke Reserve Bourbon manifests the passion of John Wayne. I don't know what that means exactly, but it's rested for a minimum of 9 years and finished in world-class Napa Valley called Cabernet infused French oak barrels.
And those barrels, I think, are 98 to 100 points. Like they actually made those type of wine bottles from it.
Yeah. So, and then it says the Grand Cru wine barrels impart a natural seasoning, toasting, and complexity, allowing the bourbon to finish to a desired flavor profile and proof. Lush. Would you say lush?
I would say a little sweetness.
Lush, balanced, and bold. You can sense the
when I think
aromas
Wayne,
of the oak and it's surprising hint of cherry. That's the one you wanted to keep saying.
When I think John Wayne, I think hint of cherry and lush. But I like it, man. Have you ever had this before?
I've never.
Have you had any of his other spirits?
No, like I said, I was more.
That's good.
I didn't even see, like I never even knew this one existed until I saw it. I'm like, okay. And it was the only bottle left of it. So I was like, is this like a mistake? Was it like meant to be outside? Like it was just in a case, like hidden.
What are the liquor rules in Texas compared to Ohio?
So there's no regulation.
Sounds like Texas.
And there's a sin tax. So if there's a higher tax on liquor products,
can you charge whatever you want for it?
They can charge whatever they want.
It's not state controlled.
It's not state controlled. So I would say most of like the national retail like chains down there, like these Siegel and spirit shops, like the ones that just have bigger brands, they might be 10 to 20 bucks more expensive than Ohio. They don't try to gouge you because the companies that are producing these bottles are still sending them across the United States, so they're not going to there's still an MSRP to it, but they can still go up a little bit. Now, if you're a privately owned shop and you were like, oh, I want to go find this, they might charge $200, maybe $250 for it because they're not a big box.
Are there certain hours or certain days you can buy alcohol in Texas?
You can't buy on Sunday from Dallas, at least. I have not been able to.
So the liquor stores can you buy beer and wine on Sundays?
You can't buy wine either. You can just buy beer.
Just beer. Interesting.
I mean, because I know when I went to go buy it.
You can buy at a restaurant. But you can't go to a store and buy it yourself. Did you guys see in Ohio what they're doing now? What went through the House? Yeah, so it went through the state House recently. And I don't know all the aspects of the bill, but it seems like a lot of the restaurant and bar owners are really trying to push and try to recover. So it's, again, a good time for, I think, the government to kind of hear you after being quarantined, shut down for as long as we have been. It's interesting that they're pushing for Friday. Did you see this, Spencer?
Well, are you talking about the fact that you can carry alcohol now in some cities?
So, yeah, you can carry out, which has been something they started during
I'm talking open container.
So I did see that.
Some of the bars and some of the breweries, you can have open containers and walk around that city.
Correct. And I think that's what they're trying to push through completely. But it was going to be pushing it from 2:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning on Fridays and Saturdays. They're going to be expanding. So bars and I think some restaurants can use outside their patio area, like into the parking lot, which normally would be something that you'd have to get a special permit for the amount of space, the amount of days. You'd have to do a donation to a charity for that. There's a lot of steps involved in that. Anytime we do like the Smoking Tent event, or if like Fido, our neighbor, is using like the bocce ball court normally, if they have that roped out, they have to do a bunch of things, including donate to a charity. They have to get the paperwork filed. They have to get someone out there to inspect the area. And now it seems like they're trying to really push it. I think it's great, honestly, because I'm not the 4 a.m. thing, but
I know Elton over at Prohibition is doing that to his parking lot. It's basically putting down AstroTurf. But the main thing that you have to have is you have to have a handicap parking space. But everyone else can park. So he's turning his parking lot allegedly into more seating.
okay.
So obviously he can't have as many seating inside the restaurant or on the patio.
Yeah, because of the social distancing.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to have handicap parking available. And he's actually having a golf cart so you can actually drive people from, the parking, a separate parking lot to his place of establishment.
Sounds like Put in Bay.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
People who are willing to adapt and change are going to do it.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's
Amy's just opened up.
Yeah,
McClellan's,
which you can still see. So Amy, if you're watching, yes, the barrel head is still back there. You should probably take that.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know. I like it.
Kentucky does that already.
What's that?
And Indianapolis does that already.
Does what?
The open, like you can have an open container.
I don't know if that's statewide. That's always been city, to my knowledge, in most places. Like Savannah, I know you can do it. Obviously, Vegas, you can do it. New Orleans, you can do it. They try to push it through like certain districts, like short north area they were trying to push that through. Easton here in the area, they're trying to do it. I know that they've tried to do it by like city, or I don't know if it's like a property thing or whatever it is. I don't know exactly, but now it seems to be going through the state.
Because I know when we went to the Big Ten championship, like it was weird to me that I pull up to Indianapolis and I'm like, oh, I can just have an open container and just drink everywhere. I'm like,
yeah, you probably weren't supposed to.
That was just
no.
That was just you doing it. Just not getting caught doing something doesn't mean it's legal.
Sure?
Yeah.
Say again?
Yeah.
Come again?
All right. Who else is drinking this Duke right now? All right. Nate, grab that mic and let's see, because this is something that, three of us drinking it, we don't really know much more about it. I know you found out what distillery it's coming from. Nate, what do we have on this whiskey beyond the fact that what we've talked about, the fact that we like it? Obviously, it's something that I don't even know if John Wayne has any real, like,
not anymore.
Not that's what I want to mean, but like, is it just his namesake that someone used? His estate? His estate? Okay.
Yeah, so his estate still gets royalties from using the licensing for using his name.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's actually distilled at OZ Tyler Distillery.
What else do they do? Do
in
we know?
Owensboro. I read some of that. They do a lot of private selections and private labels.
Did they do an Ezra?
They do an Ezra Brooks as well. But most of what they do is private label stuff.
Okay.
I get kind of a mint flavor in it.
Bright.
Were you chewing gum?
Some brightness.
Yep.
Was that cinnamon? Is that Big Red?
No, not
cherry?
not cinnamon.
I get a brightness.
Just more like a peppermint.
Yes, it is a peppermint.
It's a good bourbon.
I can taste it more after the fact, especially smoking on a cigar.
Long
I like
heat?
that.
It's got a decent finish, like length finish to it. Like it does sit there on your palate for a while.
What would you categorize? I know you're going to get into cigar in a little bit. What
Yeah,
would you
talk about cigar.
categorize the cigar? Like,
So I always
Strength-wise.
categorize this as a medium full.
Yep.
My father cigars, everything you look on their website, anything you like, any press releases about this cigar, it's been out for a while. They say it's a full bodied cigar, which I don't think it's the most. I mean, I'd say it's full flavor. I think it's a great cigar.
Yeah.
But I would not say this is a full bodied cigar compared to some of the other stuff that they put out. I think like their Don Pepin Blue is fuller just in strength. I think. I don't know. The Le Bijou always kind of confuses me, but like the Judge, I think, which is in that sample, my father, the Judge that came out, I think it's got amped up strength compared to this.
what do you get, or what do you call when? So this cigar feels, I don't want to say like tight, kind of. It's actually
The
feels
draw,
like, no, not
or-
necessarily draw. The actual feel of the cigar
band?
feels pretty compact.
Compact.
Like
Okay.
the band feels tight.
Not the band, the whole thing. Yeah, it feels dense. Is that pretty typical of this specific
I'd
brand?
say, yeah. So my father, I don't know. not sure exactly what you're saying with that. I mean, to be
Just
honest,
the actual when you
like
push
it's
it,
not soft. It's not
right. It feels dense. Exactly what he was saying.
dense.
It's not as spongy. It doesn't feel as airy. It feels more tightly packed.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd say construction. My father's cigars, anything coming out of their factories, I think is some of the top notch construction. I mean, especially with their name on it. But so my father's cigars, we've talked about them before on the podcast episodes ago. They've got some history now at this point, but some other brands that they manufacture for Tatuaje, that's Pete Johnson. So that's everything that he does is coming out of the My Father factory. We were Nate, I think it was yesterday, you were educating one of our customers where he was a big fan of the My Father cigars, the Flor de las Antillas, but he was also a fan of like La Roma de Cuba. San Cristobal is also, those are Ashton cigars, but they have My Father cigars making those for them. You see My Father on some of the Miami Cigar Company, which we've done before. Crowned Heads is doing it. Yeah. So we had Miguel on recently, but I mean, yeah, there's My Father cigars is definitely something that's really done well. We were talking about that, like AJ Fernandez is kind of like the new Don Pepin, but that doesn't mean that the Garcia family is going anywhere anytime soon.
I just like the story behind the My Fathers. Like they actually have a great storyline.
Yeah, I mean, do you know part of that history?
I've listened to you countless times.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. So like Don Pepin, which is the patriarch Garcia, right? And he has that Don Pepin name because of the pepper blast that he was kind of known for with a lot of his blends, is what I've always heard. He was a master blender and everything else. He was working for Tropical Tobacco. He went out on his own. They started doing their own thing. And the story behind My Father, the reason it's called that is because Jaime, which is the son, was working on this blend, is the story I heard. Working on this blend, working on some different cigar projects. And he made this cigar as kind of an ode to his father. And that's the namesake of the company after this story. And he was apparently very touched the fact that he did this, this blend and everything. Like, and since then, you see the Don Pepin line, you see things like the Flor de las Antillas, the Antiquidad, you see some other stuff, but they still have a lot of cigars that come out with the My Father brand on it. And I agree. I mean, that's something that the first time we talked about this on the podcast, it was something that I really kind of enjoyed that story, because it's not like the Fuente family who's been around for ages, or some of the other factories and fields that have been around for ages. I mean, they've been around for a while in the industry, but they're still relatively a young company as far as the My Father brand itself.
I think they just branded themselves really well in the sense of like this, like, I don't know. It's like when you go shopping for anything like a coat, or if you actually go shopping for sunglasses or something like that, when somebody knows the actual backstory of whatever the product is, which reps are very important for this reason, just to be able to teach those things.
It's not that important.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, Jonathan, what's going on?
But at the end of the day, but
at the end of the day, everyone drink. We were joking last night, and then you guys can play along at home. Anytime Bobby Crow says at the end of the day, you can take a drink, okay?
So at the end of the day,
I gotta fill this glass.
We're out of the Duke.
The Duke's gone. We need another bottle.
When you have the actual companies, or like just the employees of that company that know that product and can explain that product,
yeah,
it just gives such a better story to it. It gives a better understanding to it. It gives you more of the depth of what they're actually standing behind. It's like their foundation. It's their credo to their brand. And I enjoy My Father's credo just because I don't think most cigar companies really they don't dive into that sometimes.
I don't think everyone can, right? I mean, that's the whole thing behind it. Like talking about that customer in the store last night, it was one of those things that, he didn't realize that Ashton doesn't own factories or tobacco. Ashton is more or less a gigantic middleman, if you will, right? I mean, it's something that they own the marketing behind all this stuff.
Brand.
They're a great brand. I'm not saying that, but it's like all the Ashton line is all Fuente products as far as where it's manufactured. The San Cristobal, like I said, the La Roma de Cuba, those are both My Father products. So I mean, they're using that. So they don't really have the story that, say, My Father themselves have, because they have the roots in the industry.
Not as many bourbon companies have the story.
Actually, I would just. There's a.
Well, no.
I think the story's a little bit more in grind depending on the
No,
distillery.
no. To the point though, the stuff we're drinking right now, the Duke. I mean, like John Wayne didn't own a distillery. He didn't do it. And again, I don't think he had his hands on this project very much.
We can assume
John Wayne Jr. did for sure.
No, but I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, because now that's the big thing, right? Is that you have all these celebrities that are backing these spirits, whether it be whiskey or tequila or whatever it is, and some of them have their hands on the process, but a lot of them don't.
I guess I'm going to switch it a little bit here. Have you ever thought about your next BS cigar and having a story with it? I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm just curious.
The story of two middle-aged men in the Midwest, Columbus, Ohio, in a high-end retail mall.
Focusing.
No, I mean, that is a story, but I mean, that was the whole thing. Is that, I mean, with us, it's, we don't own the fields, we don't own any of that stuff. We worked with manufacturers that we liked. We had an idea of what we wanted. We are working on a third blend. I think it's great. But that was the whole thing, is that at least we wanted to put our names on it in a sense. So that was our story, right? Is that, it's BS. Got Brian and Steve. We have fun with the name, obviously, with bullshit and all that. But then you have part of his family crest and my family crest on there. You have Spirit on there. He's got some Native American heritage. That's where he had that. My credo or my thing is focus. So that got on the band. And we picked orange and purple because there's not orange and purple in most humidors. I mean, that was the story behind that. I mean, it's like we have our representation on there, but we were not really shy about the fact that it wasn't for any other reason than making it purple and orange. There's no like real substantial reason for that. It's just simply that red is the most commonly used color on a band, right? This one that we have with My Father, which I will say I do love the marketing behind the My Father stuff. They have that kind of that gold leaf, but it's just that it's high end, very intricate band on it.
Roman Times
New Roman.
Times New Roman.
Yeah,
you got the gold leaf. You got. I'm sure you got like a leaf in there at some point. Yeah, you got a little bit Greek.
You've got the coins, which is very classic.
Yeah.
You got the My Father cigars on there. They got the MF, which again, motherfucker.
There it is.
Garcia and Garcia's on there. So I mean, you do have a bit of that. It says handmade. I don't know. This cigar's been around for quite some time. I mean, you're going on almost 10 years of this. This blend's been out. Probably more than that actually now. I want to say it was around, you want to look that up, Nate? I want to say it was around 2010
Did
or
Don
11.
Pepin, was this his blend or is this?
So this was, again, the story is that it was his son that was working on it in the factory.
He still like some of the pepper in this?
Turns out that's kind of like the whiskey.
9 years old.
John Wayne's son Ethan started the project after John Wayne.
Boom.
There you go. There's the tie-in. I love the tie-ins when it all comes together and you're not even planning it.
Say that on the mic since I get that mic.
You say it on the mic since you didn't have the mic in front of you.
Just don't drop the mic.
You're gonna have to earn it.
No, so John Wayne's son Ethan started this whiskey project after his dad passed away because they found some of his memoirs and whiskey collection after he passed. And so John Wayne was a big fan of whiskey and tequila going back into the 40s.
Yeah.
And so his son Ethan started this after he passed in 79.
Ethan needed some money in 70 and in the summer of 80. Ethan needed to make some changes to his life. Genghis Khan just wasn't coming back.
Jesus. What do you guys think of the cigar?
I think construction wise, it's flawless.
Yeah.
The reason I asked if the dump it because I did get some pepper to it, so I didn't know if that was I'd say it's medium to full. It's not. I'm sorry. What was that one I had a couple weeks ago that you said that just knocked me on my butt? This one doesn't knock
Animal
me.
Cracker.
Right, Animal Cracker. This isn't nearly as strong as something along those lines.
Which the Animal Cracker does come out of the My Father factory.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good cigar to have with this bourbon. But to be fair, I think this bourbon would go well with anything. I know we're trying something a little lighter later on, but I think that this cigar might overpower the bourbon slightly.
The cigar overpowers it?
Slightly. For
Interesting.
Me.
Interesting. Bobby, what do you think?
I mean, I've always loved the My Father brand. So I wouldn't say it's like my always go-to, but if I'm in an unfamiliar shop, don't have the help that you're traveling, you just want to get a cigar and you're like, okay, I know this is a good cigar. Usually most cigar shops have it, I would say. and I just enjoy it because even though it is supposed to be a medium to full body, to me it's still more like a milder taste to me. And I've been, for whatever reason, my palate of cigars have been going more towards from a medium to full, more to a medium to a light lately, which I don't know why, because I like more things like a little bit, not harsher is not the word, but like just that lighter, I like the airiness of how sometimes the cigar smokes.
It's getting warmer outside. You're down in Texas, maybe?
No,
Wrong. That was stupid.
Trying to help him out, man.
No, it's just no. I mean, because like I used to smoke. Like,
no,
like I used to smoke.
I love it.
Well, I used to smoke Reds all the time. When I smoked cigarettes, I used to smoke Marlboro Reds.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, it's just like I don't like having that just blast of whatever that full body is sometimes.
Well, so I've talked about it frequently on this podcast, where it's like the barrel proof and everything going on the whiskeys. And with cigars, I mean, there was a big thing where it was just how much Ligero can you put into a cigar, and it's going to punch you. And it's not like a machismo thing. I don't think it was just for decades and forever. It was like, the Cuban tobacco, they had some strength to it, but I mean, they were wildly popular with the mildness of them. You know what I mean? You had good flavor. There was all about the flavor. And then when we went big on ring gauge in the cigar world, which, you get bigger and bigger. Now you have like 80 ring gauge stuff out there, which is very, for those of you guys don't.
What is this?
This is, I want to say 54. Yeah, 54. This is what we're smoking. My father, number 5, which is a Toro. I want to say it's a 6x54. Okay. It's in that ballpark, but yeah, that was the whole thing, is that everyone was going like fuller and fuller and everything. And I'm the same way, actually. I have, and you brought up the BS stuff. I smoke the BS Gold, which is more medium bodied than I do the silver, but I like them both.
Bobby Breyer likes the silver better. He thinks that's
got
a little bit more heat to it.
And it does. That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, but then you got a guy like Bob Breyer, who's been on the podcast before, that he loves the stronger proof, the higher proof whiskeys. So it's
in the bourbon world, I think a lot of people like the stronger proof whiskeys because you get more of the whole flavor versus the heat. Yeah. So it's not as watered down. So theoretically, you can get more of the essence of what that actually is supposed to taste like. I know when Nate's on this, he doesn't like to add anything to it because he wants to taste it the way it's supposed to be. Right. And if you're getting, let's even go with like a Maker's full proof, you're getting what Maker's actually should taste like versus, watered down.
Well, I mean, even with like the special barrel select bottles or whatever special edition bottles are coming out, I think there's a difference I think there's a big difference of this. I'm going to put so much bold taste into a bourbon versus the other characteristics of the vanilla or the oak or those other notes. I don't mind tasting the heat, but I actually just enjoy sipping on a bourbon. I can't go through this bottle by myself at night. I mean, I could if I really wanted to, but honestly, I'd rather have like maybe 1 or 2 glasses, like, shot or double shot, and just enjoy it and sip on it. I'm not the person that wants to be like, I need to then do something else after the fact with the heat.
No, but I think this is easy sipping enough, though. Surprisingly, at 110.
Yeah, you don't need to add ice or water or anything like that to this.
Is this really 110?
Yes.
Just shocked.
Like I said, I'm not.
It doesn't. Feel
I can't
like
think of a.
No.
Which could be a good thing.
I can't think of a 9-year. I can't think of another 9-year that actually has that taste. Usually, like I said, a 12, maybe a 15.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of anything else.
Well, just thinking of recent history, 2 weeks ago we had that Trails In that I brought in, and that was
the Oregon one, right?
It was
Staves,
it was distilled in Kentucky,
right?
And then after 8 years, it was shipped to Oregon. They put the Oregon oak staves into it to finish it.
Yeah,
but that was an 8-year. This is a 9-year, but this is so much deeper and richer after just 1 year difference. Like 2 completely different whiskeys, but that one we were talking about how it just seems so bright with that oak finish to it. Whereas this is just really, really rich and has a great depth of flavor to it.
Can also, Nate or Dustin, can you look up the MSRP on this?
Everywhere that I've seen, it was $119.99.
So yeah, you were right. And you got it for 80?
I got it for 80. but I think a lot of the resellers are selling it for like 170, maybe 220, depending on.
Because they do
On
one
the-
batch a year.
On the secondary, you're saying the
Like-
retailers that are carrying it. Retailers, yeah.
So I mean, like I said, I was very shocked to find it. I'm really enjoying it. To me, I can actually have this during the wintertime. I can have this during the summertime. It feels like it's just a good balance. Like I'm not overpowered at
good.
all by it.
I think it's good. Spencer, you're awfully quiet today.
It's fine. It's fine. There's nothing special about it. It's
So
fine.
that's actually a good opinion, though.
I feel terrible because the kid like went shopping for it. I mean, I know
You
there's
don't
a
know me.
story. I know that I know that he went someplace to get it, and it's rare. So I appreciate the fact that I'll probably never have this again in my life. So that's the part.
But you're not going to pay that.
Well, no, that's the part
Because
that no. I'm not saying that I would never order it again. I'm saying that it's in Texas. It's hard to find.
Yeah.
You can't have this in Ohio. So that part is awesome and unique. I never heard of it before here. So the cool part about this podcast is I get to try stuff that I would never try before. But all of us have had a lot of bourbons and things like that, and it is fine. But to me, there's nothing that stands out against this for $120 versus a lot of other things that are on the market.
So I'm kind of with you on that. I mean, I think this is a good bottle, but it's. So let me ask you, Bobby, on that note. I mean, if you come across this again,
I would buy it
why?
because I just like to buy things. I mean, no,
So it's fine.
So to me,
it's for sale. Yes, I'll have that.
No, I mean, it's one of those things when I go bourbon shopping or whatever I'm shopping for, I'm thinking about the experience, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm donating a bottle to the podcast, right, or if I am in a garage with my friends or just coming back to Ohio, whatever the reason is,
Yeah.
like I'm in a position where I can, if I want to spend a little bit more money, it's not going to affect me. Not because I'm, I can't find, like when I picked up Blanton's today, I paid $56. I love Blanton's.
Yeah.
I love it. I would say this is better than Blanton's.
I just think it's totally different than Bland.
Because there's different keynotes. There's different for the year, I think it's very complex for a 9-year. I can't put my finger on what other 9-year bourbon even is remotely close to this.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Knob Creek.
You think Knob Creek is similar?
It's still as far as complexity and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Remember, you're not on a microphone, so if you want to talk, get on the microphone.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the garage, Dustin.
I mean, but for me, like even a Knob Creek, or I can't think of I could still pick apart a Knob Creek. I'd rather have a select, like a special year edition of Knob Creek over just Knob Creek. I'd rather have Stag Junior over Knob Creek. But I mean, those are my different my pilot.
So
yeah, you also have the story behind it, and you're able to search for it, and that's what makes it special. And that's the awesome thing about bourbon, that you have a story behind it.
I mean, like I said, I wasn't searching for it. I just like going into a random place and finding something. It was just cool to me.
So I think I kind of agree with both of you on this. And I think, again, Bobby, your strongest reason for buying another bottle is because you like buying things.
I mean, but
I think
I actually really enjoy this bottle.
I think this is actually a very good whiskey. It
kind of reminds me of E.H. Taylor a little bit.
But again, which like small batch?
Would you say a little bit of E.H. Taylor, like just the smoothness?
I couldn't tell you the last time I had it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're searching. So,
like just the smoothness.
I think what I'm getting from what Spencer's saying is that it is a good bottle for 120. So if this was like EH Taylor, like so it's $40, I think it's a great bottle. I think it's $60. It's a great bottle. I think 70 or 80 where what you bought it for, you put that out there with some of the other things, you know what I mean? Like we talk about.
I would have maybe
Ohio.
thought a little bit more about the 120 if it was readily available.
So I think with 120, yeah. So I think you're buying this because it's a unique
1
bottle.
year. It's a 1 year.
I mean, I don't know who put this
once.
sticker on here, but yeah, it's once a year. You did not put that sticker on there. 62 of 241. So I don't know if that was basically the batch that year. I mean,
I think he was saying they put one barrel out a year, right? Don't they do one batch of it a year?
Yeah, one batch.
So
a
theoretically,
year.
there's only 240 bottles of this. So the rarity of it is kind of why the price point is of it too.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it says on there.
241 bottles of this brew, you're probably looking at 2, no more than 3.
Once again, you're not on the mic.
So maybe
Gosh, just all rusty on this thing, man.
So what Nate was saying for 241 bottles, maybe it was 2 to 3 barrels for this, and for 120, just to have 3 barrels that was distributed through the United States to be able to find 1 or 2 at certain liquor stores that actually sell enough to be able to sell this bottle. Yeah. I think the fact that to me at 120 is a steal. I mean, when I bought the Angel MV 2019, I think I paid $240.
Yeah, but see, I think that's a unique bottle. That's
but that one, to me, would be unique also because you can't find.
For the record, it's all right that we disagree. It would be a boring ass podcast if everyone thought, "Oh, that tastes good."
I
this
agree.
Good.
So what my point is though is that there are times where like this one I think is a good bottle. I love the fact you brought it because I've never seen it. I probably won't see it very often. Like, obviously, from this batch, I'll never see it again. It'll be an absolute rarity. Drinking this, when you say it's 120. When we had on the podcast, and we were talking Whistle Pig 12 for the same price, $125, I would pick this. Absolutely. So again, you're doing that price comparison thing. You can't take away this at 120 versus Whistle Pig 12-year rye. Okay. I'd grab this if I was, doing apples to apples on the price. I also agree with Spencer. It's fine. I think that there are times for me, and I don't know about you guys, you drink enough different bottles of bourbon. It's tough to be like, okay, what is this compared to? Like, is it price point accurate?
Well,
is this?
I like to take the price point off of this just in general, because then I think you're in a whole different range as far as what you're bang for your buck. A lot of people like 107, which was Weller 107. When that was $40, and now people really love it when it's at $60. So kind of take the price point out of it, and if you like it and it's 120 and money's not a thing, grab it.
What I'm saying though, when you say it's fine anymore, it's tough to get excited. I get the same way about cigars. This cigar is on our shelf, $13. It's got a Habano Rosado Criollo wrapper. I think that's kind of cool because I think my father's cigars uses a lot of hybrid wrapper seeds, and it's something that the wrapper's not their own, but this is the Nicaraguan tobacco that's used in it is stuff that they grow. So again, going back to there's a little bit more identity to the cigar. But this cigar is something that I can always recommend. This is in my opinion, Nate, you put it on the feed, think it's medium bodied. I always described it as medium. And now you compare it to other cigars out there. I think it's medium plus. I mean, but it's such a well-balanced cigar that I think the reason I picked this cigar is not only because of Father's Day, because we're doing that special at Tinder Box at Easton. I think that this is something that scotches. So the first time I really enjoyed a Lafroig 10.
Okay.
So I'm not a big peaty guy, right? I'm not a big smoked peat. So I don't really drink those like Lafroig, Lagavulin. I don't typically go to those by themselves.
No.
We were in the shop one day.
I don't either.
Well, we were in the shop one day, and so Brian, the owner of Tinder Box at Easton, he brings in a Lafroig. I think it was 10. And we were going to have a toast. I think it was like my first full year or whatever it was that we were toasting to. And we pulled out the My Father, and I got to be honest, this was the cigar that I smoked, and for the first time I enjoyed somewhat of a peaty scotch, as I describe it. This cigar, I think, is well-balanced enough. It has flavor. You were saying it overpowers the whiskey, Spencer?
Right, but I still think that the cigar is medium to full.
Right.
Personally, but as a cigar, I think the cigar has more flavor as you start to smoke it as well. Mm-hmm. As we kind of get midway through it, I'm starting to get different notes of cigar that I did not get obviously early on.
And I get like in the retrohale on the cigar, I get a little bit of like burn in the nose, but it's not like a pepper. It's not, there's no like reason. It's not, what's that? Yeah, I mean, it's just got a little bit of pop to it. I mean, I just don't think that, I think that this cigar has, and I use this a lot, but it's almost got like a kind of a warmer spice to it. It's got some food flavors to it, which I like about this cigar. It's something that, it's not necessarily mouth-watering, but it's something that I get a little. I want to keep smoking the cigar.
It's like a dry
the flavor.
It's a dry, like
it's drier,
like a dry, like maybe like a rub, maybe a dry. Like if you want to do like a fruit note, I'm not saying it's apricot, but like, you know how you have dry apricots or dry banana, like some of them.
You're on it. You're on it.
It's one of those things where.
Thank you for saying apricot correctly too.
Okay.
Apricot?
Stop it. That is, you sound ridiculous. Learn English.
But for me, I get more of the drier fruit in the middle of the actual cigar.
Yeah.
Between the bourbon and the cigar, I think that I would prefer a lighter cigar, a lighter, milder, not because it doesn't overpower it. It doesn't overpower it. I think they're even.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to, they complement each other really well, but it's hard for me to say, when just because they complement doesn't mean they pair 100% together. I want something that kind of has more of a joint to it.
Yeah.
So I'm more excited to see how it tastes with the second half.
Ray Chester says, "Take it back, Bobby, ungrateful sons of bitches."
Go fuck yourself.
Good to see you, Ray. Welcome.
Is that Vietnam?
That's Vietnam, Ray. Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Go fuck yourself.
No, he's not. That's not still going on. If you think that's
it never ended, bro. Never ended.
And he's English.
He'll know.
And,
Pick a side.
yeah, it's called retirement.
He picked a side.
He picked a side, and he's winning.
Yeah.
He's retired in a very nice tropical area. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Seriously though, like let's set that because we said we were going to do that. Let's set it aside. Don't take it back unless you really want to. You want what's in my glass? Too bad.
I'm just like I said.
There's no offense, by the way. Just
I'll take full offense and I'll defend my opinion.
Everyone's
in America.
Yeah, I can tell.
It's the American way, American dream. Get offended.
But honestly, though, like I really can't compare this bourbon to any of the other bourbons I've really had. Out of all of the bourbons I've really had, and that's what I'm trying to.
Well, so that's what I like about it too, though. I mean, I agree with
It's
Spencer
unique.
saying it's fine. I also agree with you that this is something that if you had the opportunity to buy it again, take the price out of it. But you can't never take the price out of it. But I mean, if it was within the means, and you say, you know what, I actually enjoyed that bottle, and I haven't had it in a while, or say it is next year's release,
Yeah.
and you see it again. All right, now I'm curious, and I'm going to pick up another bottle because we enjoyed the last one. And you're at the store and you're looking for something else that you don't have on, in your bar. You know what? I actually enjoyed that the last time. That's fine. I mean, again, I think it's a fine bottle. I think it's a good bottle. I don't think, and I don't with the wine barrels and stuff like that. I do get a little sweetness out of it, and I think that might be why, as you said after you read the label, hint of cherry.
I wasn't wrong.
I think it's a good bottle. I'm not disappointed. And I don't think you should be disappointed.
I'm not disappointed. I'm not. I mean, I'm like, if it was last week's bottle, I would be a little disappointed. Shots fired. I did not enjoy it.
No, the
but
Wiggle last week was just so different. I mean, that was the whole thing we were talking about.
Is that the name of a bourbon?
It was the name of a
it's catchy
Pennsylvania bourbon. So Josh brought it last week. And I appreciated drinking the bottle. And it was interesting to watch the crowd last week drinking that, because not on the podcast. When you're on the podcast, you're at the table, you're trying to be objective and you're trying to.
It wasn't good.
So
it wasn't good.
It reminded me of something else that does. And I said it last week. It was the half barrels, like the 25 gallon barrels. It was 2 years,
like Cleveland whiskey type stuff.
That's what it kind of reminded me.
So kind of bright, new, try to speed up the process a little bit.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So it was completely different. When you do this, now we're drinking what they claim to be a 9-year barrel and all this stuff. I mean, this is more traditional. This is good.
I won't even. Yes, it would be more of a traditional bourbon, but reality, like I said, I'm still, out of all the bourbons I've had through my career, I can't.
It's a career now.
Sure, why not?
Are you getting paid for this?
Absolutely. You didn't know?
I didn't know. Shit.
But I really, and I'm more like, even John, have you ever had anything that tastes like this?
No. It's different, but in a good way.
Dustin, have you had anything that ever tastes like this? No. Nate, have you had anything that tastes like this?
It tastes like bourbon. I don't know what we're talking about here. It tastes.
We don't care about
it tastes like bourbon. I mean, but there's nothing defining about it.
No, I'm kidding. But honestly, like, does that?
I can find a couple that may be close, but not exactly like
the point is, for me, this bottle, I think it's cool, the John Wayne thing. I think there's a little bit of story there, right? That it's the estate doing it. It's unique. I think it's a good bottle. I mean, we'll get to the ratings towards the end of part one, but
Absolutely.
I think this is a good bottle, just like the cigar. And I think you do throw in price point. I think this cigar is something that if it was, say, instead of $13, it was $17. If you like this cigar, you're not going to be disappointed with the construction.
So walk me through why this cigar actually costs $13 versus $10 or $17. Or
so with my father products, it's very interesting for me. They've had some releases over the last several years, and I think that it's defined by obviously the company and the market. I think I don't know the nuts and bolts of how much that wrapper leaf costs them. I don't know how stable this hybrid wrapper leaf.
Is this a better product that you can define than a $10 cigar?
So what I was going to say is that when they're releasing cigars, some of the ones that aren't in that 5-pack that I put together for the special this week, they've released. And I think my father cigars puts out cigars in this price point, $13, $14. The construction's fantastic. I think that it's a little bit more of a complex. There's a lot more flavor to it, different flavors as you're smoking. Like you were saying, Spencer, that it kind of builds a little bit, like the flavors change a little bit as you're smoking. They put out also some of theirs, like the more recent ones, like the La Promesa, La Gran Oferta. If anyone smoked those cigars from my father, those are coming in at the $10 price point. So it's like $9.95 for the same size cigar. So just for $3 difference, but percentage wise, that's actually a big jump, right? So that's, I think, part of your question. They're, to me, more one note. The construction's fine. It's not like this. This reminds me of something that I would be expecting from the farm rolls in Cuba. You know what I mean? I'm expecting some of the top-notch cigars to smoke like this. So when you compare this to, if you want to get down that road, there is that if you have a Davidoff that smokes like this, you're paying, in my opinion, $20 some for a similar well-constructed cigar. Gotcha. And similar, I guess, complexity, what you expect. So that's the thing. I think it's all relative. Same thing with the bottle. I think with these cigars, I think smoking these, Jonathan, who's in the garage, he's got a portfolio from General Cigars, and he was on with Ricky. We're going to get him back on with a couple other brand ambassadors going forward. We're booking that. I'm looking forward to that. From Diesel, also Cohiba. You're talking about even those two brands, or you have CAO and things of that nature. You can, if you find a cigar that sells retails for $10 that you really, really enjoy, I'm expecting from a company that size that it should be smoking well. They're not going to put out a bad product because they are a huge company that has great quality control. My father's cigars, when they started, Nate looked it up, and it makes sense because actually I really, really got into cigars more on a daily type of a smoker basis back in 2008, which is when this came out. And I remember when I went into the Tinder Box and this one had come out, and I remember Frankie, who used to work there, rest in peace, Frankie. But yeah, exactly. But I remember when he first said that to me, now that you say 2008, when this cigar came out, he's like, yeah, we got this new one in, and I was smoking the Robusto size. And I mean, I was eating them up. I mean, they were fantastic cigars. Fast forward now, 12 years later, it's still a very solid cigar. You know what you're going to get. So I will say for $13, I know what I'm going to get. Consistency. So if I have a bad My Father, and it's interesting because they have so many, but like the My Father, I almost want to call it the original My Father. If I have a bad one, yes, that's fine. You know, it's a hand-rolled product. You're going to have that happen no matter what the price is. But that being said, if I have a 2 out of a box or 3 out of a box that aren't smoking well, I will then be disappointed. $10 cigar, I know it doesn't sound like much. Same thing with whiskeys. When I'm looking at this Duke, I would like to drink this Duke if I had the bottle available, and I probably wouldn't kill it as quickly because it is $120. That's how I work. But if I have Eagle Rare for $35, and if that was readily available, I would have no problem killing that bottle, and I know what I'm going to get. I feel like with an Eagle Rare or a Buffalo Trace, like you say, Bland's, even though that is the smaller batch Blanton's. Mm-hmm. Bobby, you said that you really enjoy that. So you see a bottle of Blanton's, you're not necessarily buying it like a lot of people. We were joking about it. Spencer and I were joking about it. It's like, He said if if it was
don't throw me under the bus, bro.
So Spencer said,
I'll drive that bus.
no, Spencer. So
Again, you did not make the bourbon. It is not a personal attack.
I guess
I'm glad you are enjoying it.
No,
it's not a personal attack.
I'm not taking it as a personal attack, but I think when you say something that's just fine, it doesn't really give like the audience a true understanding of what fine is. It's actually like I'm tired. It's one of those. It doesn't really.
I'll give it when he gives me the scale,
the rating. Yeah.
But for me, it's like I don't look at price.
We know.
And no, I mean, but on a serious note, I don't look at price. And the reason why I don't look at price is can I find something around $30 to $50 that's a good bottle? Absolutely. But can I also find something that's actually really, really good between 120 and 500? Absolutely. Can I find something that's really bad between 20 and 500? Absolutely. So, I mean, compared to like more expensive bottles that don't taste that well,
I can see what you're saying about
to me, in a larger scale, like forget the price, just a overall scale.
Yeah.
For me, what's checking off the boxes about this bottle in particular is just I can't compare it to
something
anything
else
that I've had.
So that's
to me,
good.
that's very hard to find.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it. Now, have I had better? Yes, but I wouldn't say it wouldn't probably be in a top 10 for sure out of all the bottles I've had.
Yeah.
And I think that's a strong contender. I think this is
That's
a strong
good, man. That's good.
Yeah, I mean I mean, you say it doesn't matter about price. For me, it does to a point. It that's the gauge of my level of disappointment if I don't like the drink. If I buy it at a bar, right? So when Spencer and I were out at Burn in Indy, and your buddy bought what was it? The
Like the Louis
the 13th, and it was like $2.25 for a shot. Came out on like a silver, platter, and they put gloves on and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden,
this was before COVID.
No, we shared a glass. This was last week. No, Shannon, yeah, you guys. I'm glad you're sitting apart, so you're not sharing glasses tonight. But so no, what it reminds me of. So we were sitting there, and it was later in the evening, and his Spencer's. What's your friend's name? I forget.
Chris.
So Chris is out, and he's like, hey, they were looking at the Louis the 13th. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna buy one, a glass. And I had never had it before.
I had never had it either.
And I don't know if he had it before.
He had never had it either.
So he's like, you know what, I'm going to do it. It's like $200 and some, I'm going to do it. And so we're passing it down. And I forget who it was in the group.
To be fair, he's my financial advisor. So it really bothers me that he's spending his money that freely as well.
What's his commission?
He does
well.
Cut.
He does well. Clearly,
that's why he bought that.
He shows me this pyramid thing. Yeah.
Hopefully, you're still doing well.
We're doing okay.
He keeps buying me bottles of stuff. No, but it was funny because we were actually. This is what it reminds me of, and I forget who it was in the 4 or 5 people that took a sip out of the glass, just trying it, and someone's. They said it said like, "Yeah, it's all right," and I'm sitting there and I'm like. So, like Bobby, you bringing that, like, and Spencer's saying, like, it's not an insult. He's just like saying, fine. But like that night, like we're at this new soft opening of this gorgeous place, and this thing just came out, and everyone knows that this was like a $200 pour. And I forget who it was. It might have been, I don't know. It wasn't Avi. He had a little bit, and he's watching this. But someone like looked at, I was like, so what'd you think? He's like, yeah, it's pretty good for a cognac. And I'm like, that's an honest answer, but you probably should have just told me later. Like, I think that becomes a little insulting that this guy just bought this and then shared it with you. And now it's like, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Like, what other cognacs have you had? For me with whiskeys, we drink them all the time. So that's where I guess with this one, I know we're kind of beating a dead horse, but I think this is a good bottle. Well, I am not disappointed. I'm going to bring it back to that Whistle Pig 12. I felt bad in a sense for Tanya, who brought it on, because she spent the $125 on the bottle. And you could see it in her face. And then she said it. She's like, no, I would not buy this again. Because it was not that great, especially for $125.
I think
It'd been a good $30 or $40 bottle.
I don't know about
well, I
that.
think at the end of the day, you're welcome.
I need a pour. What else are we drinking here? No, we got to save that. I'll take a little bit.
No, stop! Don't please. Harder. Stop.
It's just all right. It's just all right.
Safe word is faster. Yeah.
It explains so much, Spencer. You smile a lot.
It's that 110 proof coming.
It's 110. It sneaks up on you, man. I don't know what to tell you. It's a good bourbon, man. I'm not trying to knock it.
I think if you actually had a blind tasting, like I
There,
feel like
there you go. I'd love to do that on.
like I rather like I think one of these episodes, future, I would love to see a blind tasting, and just be like, only Nate knows whatever those things are. Dustin knows, whoever's in the audience that night, and give a true rating of it. I honestly still think that that's gonna stick out even during a blind tasting.
Yeah.
About 6 months ago, after maybe a little longer than that, after Ohio State game, my buddy did a blind tasting at just a shitty dive bar of all the light beers. So you had like Natural Light, Miller Light, Bud Light, and on and on and on.
Natty Light, love
Exactly.
Good stuff
And
right
he nailed every single one of them.
Did you even get Paps on there?
I don't know if they had Pepsi. They definitely had Coors Light, but
It
it's
won a
all
blue ribbon.
and he knew exactly which one was which. I was genuinely surprised. To me,
What's the crap?
I got 5 out of 5 wrong. They all tasted similar.
Great.
to
Was
me.
it
They all
draft or
tasted
was
good.
it bottle?
Draft?
It was draft.
Wow. It's impressive. Yeah.
He's an alcoholic.
Well, even then, like
Which is maybe more impressive because if he drinks that much, he knows the flavor of stuff.
like Killian's draft. I love actually Killian's draft, but I hate it out of a bottle or a can.
talking like Killian's Red.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
a good beer.
Good
Like,
beer.
but
You don't
you-
see that very
You
often
don't.
anymore.
You need to see it. I used to really enjoy Killian's.
but I'm
Red.
saying if you ever had it like in a can versus the, it's
I don't
not.
think I ever had.
It's literally night and day.
Interesting.
It's
Okay.
it's you would never expect it. So
Talking about TJ, I hear.
That's exactly right. How'd you know that?
Benjamin Harrison says.
Oh, he knows exactly who it is.
It's a TJ
That's
shout
one
out.
of the funniest things I've ever heard. That's good stuff. Man.
Sorry. So we are at that point, in my opinion, and we haven't talked about the cigar a whole lot. We talked more about the bottle, which I think is a little bit, again, being rare. I think this is something that I enjoy talking about. So I will say, I'll start with Bobby. This is the time where, absolutely, we're starting with you. Still my show. So
pass.
that's fine. You can't
No,
talk. At the end of the day, Bobby,
I
like,
plead the fifth.
no. I think with this, so give a out of 10, 10 being the best, right? So this is a time where we're going to do out of 10, rate the cigar, rate the bourbon, and then rate the pairing, if you would, and give a little bit of example on why you're doing that.
I'm gonna do the bourbon first, then
Okay.
the cigar, then together.
That's fair. He's sipping it for those listening on the audio right
Good
now.
for radio. If you do 10, I'm walking off. I'm telling you that right now. I like you, man. I can't do it, man.
No, go ahead. Yeah. The bourbon out of 10. What are you thinking?
8.9.
8.9. Very specific.
It's like I said, it's
Not quite a 9, basically.
It's
is what
not
I'm
quite a
getting from
9,
you.
but I would
Okay.
say an 8.9, solid 8.9.
Yeah.
Cigar, it's always consistent, 8.2.
Okay.
I would say the pairing is about an 8.5. I think the pairing is going to be better with the Monte Cristo next.
Okay. Spencer, what are you thinking?
No offense to anyone who brought the cigar
I'm still offended.
or anyone who brought the
Basically,
bourbon.
I wake up. I'm like the Hulk that's always angry. I'm always offended.
I'm going to do the bourbon first.
Yeah.
Again, price point not included. I think that this, for me, this could be an everyday sipper. I do enjoy it. But for me, there's nothing that stands out to me on the bourbon. So for me on the bourbon, I might go a 6.5.
Yeah.
On the cigar, I enjoy the cigar. I might do 7.5. Pairing, I'm probably going to do 7.3 on the pairing.
7.3. I'm always curious when we get down to
Well, once you get into the
I'm just gonna
eights,
start saying out of 100.
once you get into the
don't
eights,
really
that's
get
something
it.
special for me. And I think the cigar is good. I think the bourbon is good. But again, this would be something that I would do every day for the rest of my life. So again, I don't want to say that it's bad, but compared to other things that I've had out there, those are my rankings.
Got it. Very official. I like that.
Trying to appease both you two. I'm like,
I mean,
You feel like you're not just literally in the middle, but you're
Malcolm.
I think so. I'll do the whiskey. I think, and I bring in price. Absolutely. I mean, that is something that I can't ignore. I mean, on a blind taste testing, you can give something a little bit more objective just based on what you have in the glass, not knowing what it is. But once you know what it is, what it costs and everything else, I mean, I think for me, I have to bring in the price because it does frame what I'm expecting. Now, there are a lot of good bottles at $30. There's a lot of good bottles at $100. There's a lot of good bottles. I think this one is, I think it is a little bit more unique in a sense towards Bobby. I like the fact that it's finished, as they say in the French oak, wine barrels. I think you can kind of tell. I'd be interested to learn more about the product, as far as it's 9 years. We didn't really talk about when they say finished, what's the time frame of being in that finishing barrel?
Most finishes are 3 to 6 months.
So 3 to 6 months, Nate says. I think that this is something that is a very good whiskey. I'm of the opinion anymore that if you're a big John Wayne fan, I think this has got a market for it. I think when you put celebrity names, especially deceased celebrity names, I think that you're actually, I don't want to say hurting it. I mean, because it's probably good marketing, especially when you only have, if this sticker is somewhat accurate, 241 bottles a year. I'm looking at it as it doesn't need that. You can name it anything, really. You know what I mean? Like you don't necessarily have to have a celebrity endorsement or name behind it. Sometimes I think that marketing hurts it because it makes it a little kitschy. You know what I mean? But with this one, it could have any label on it. I think it's a good, great. Actually, I think it's a great one. I would give this a 8 to 9. I'd definitely give this bottle an 8. I would say at bringing in price point, if this was a $50 bottle, you're at a 9 all day long. Maybe even like a 9 to your guys' point, 9.2 or whatever, like 9 to not a 10, but it's a top pick at 50, 60, maybe $70. Once you start pushing towards the $100, that is actually taking away mine, because that's how I actually will rate things once I know what it is.
And that's fair.
So that's where I'm more of an 8-ish, with this bottle, because I'm not disappointed. It's not something I don't enjoy. It's just the more price. If this was $200, it's like Pappy or any of these, like when we
Pappy's
did
not a good comparison.
No, but when we did the old Rip Van Winkle 10 when Eric Espinosa was on, he got it for $60. So for a $60 bottle, I think that was a very, very good whiskey. If you're out there and
$250 or
$500 for that bottle, I'm gonna be like, no, that's I'm with Spencer
without the
it's
label
fine,
behind it.
I mean, that's like a $500 and I'm drinking a $60 bottle. I mean, I feel
let's play this game. I paid $80.
That's what I mean. At $80, that's where I'm at the 8-ish. You know what I mean? I think it's a good bottle. I think this is a good whiskey. I think it's got a good flavor. I'm not disappointed. I think it's something that if you have the means and you run across it for 80, if you come across it for 120, pick it up. If you know what I mean, because it's not in your collection, it's going to taste different as something as another option. I think with a cigar being a $13 cigar, I think this is never disappointing. I've always enjoyed the cigar, as I mentioned, back from the days I really got into it. I think this is a complex flavored cigar that the construction, like I said, is off the charts. I give this cigar 8.5, 9. I mean, for what it is, $13. I've never been disappointed with smoking to my father original, as I'm going to call it, because we had people asking which my father were smoking. But this is something that, and when you throw that story behind it of how it came to be, you're pushing 9, I think, with that one. The pairing, I think, is great. I think it's 8 to 9 on that as well. I think that, if
we're about the same. I said 8.2 for the cigar.
Yeah, I think the pairing is, again, it's enjoyable.
I'm just trying to help Ray out here. He just wants you to answer a true number here.
Yeah, so Ray says you're scoring on taste, right? Not price. So that's my whole thing. Just give a damn score. Ray, if you need to get back to The View in Vietnam, if that's on TV right now, go ahead. I mean, I'm sorry.
I mean, I agree with.
I think he's got cable. Yeah, Vietnam's got cable.
I agree with Ray. Like it's just in the sense of I don't think price needs to come into factor.
I agree.
I disagree completely.
If you know,
I think, Nate, you got something there?
But like, if the whole point of, like I said, for me, it's not an issue, right? But I knew I was hoping, like, when I'm not gonna call Nate out on this, but last night I was like, oh, I think it's a 6 year. because I didn't do my research, and he was going to say more corn mash build on the Duke, and I was like, and I got kind of the fact that I didn't actually do my research on it fully, and I kind of just let that opinion like linger.
Fester is what that's called.
Sure. That sounds like an Addams Family member's name, I think. So,
Stu would be another one.
Stu would be another one, yeah. So you didn't sleep last night?
Absolutely not. I had to talk to you.
That's right. That's right.
But the fact that when we actually looked at the research on it, when we actually did do a quick like 5-minute over the bottle, it really like made I got so excited about the bottle. Because I'm like, oh, there's no corn, there's no mash in that. It's a traditional bourbon. So to me, that's where I'm more excited about the bottle itself. But
I think it's good.
What's your rating, Nate? I want to also hear Jonathan's and everybody's.
I'm not on, so my rating doesn't matter. Would at $100 to $120 for this bottle, would you spend that if it didn't have John Wayne's name on it?
Yeah, I mean, like, again,
that's who are you asking?
You guys. I'm asking you guys because
I like it.
It's
because
called the Duke. It's got John Wayne's signature
John
on
Wayne.
it. So
I'm not trying to be a dick. John Wayne does nothing for me. I'm taking that part out of it. I'm
not
saying
a big Western guy.
No. I'm just saying that this is a bottle that I have never seen. I'm thrilled to try, and it is theoretically a private label, 1 or 2 barrels a year type thing. So that is very cool for me to try. So the celebrity aspect doesn't do the same as it does for Steve, like when it's like Cabo Wabo and it's like Sammy Hagar or something like that. That part doesn't bother me.
I got excited about Terramana with The Rock. You know, I bought a few bottles because, you know, The Rock, everyone likes The Rock.
You got a man crush.
Yeah, everyone does. Yeah, go ahead.
Jumanji was a great movie.
No. Go ahead, Spencer.
It's no Jumanji 2, but it's good.
The next level.
Not the original Jumanji.
All right, so those are the ratings. All right. I do want to thank the sponsors for part 1. Patreon.com/BourbonBS podcast. I also wanted to Tinder Box at Easton for the My Father cigar, which again, I'm happy we're doing another My Father. This is one of my go-tos that I don't go to. It's a great cigar that I always kind of pass over. I don't know why. There's so much,
because everything else is just
over
a toy.
10, yeah. And again, it's a $13 cigar. So for me, and I know what Ray and some other people are saying is that if price isn't a factor for me, cigar game is, you know, like you asked Spencer, $13. That's actually, I got to make sure I'm wanting to smoke that cigar for $13 because there are a lot of good cigars at 10. You know what I mean? So for me, it's a little bit different. And from a retail standpoint, being in the retail game, I know that, you know, My Father cigars, one of the reasons I like about the fact that Tinder Box at Easton is doing that special for 20% off is that you don't really get a whole lot of price break. You don't get the incentive to get that because My Father is such a popular brand that they don't put out, you know, necessarily, you know, the buy 6 boxes, get 1 or any of that stuff that a lot of the retailers can take advantage of. So for me, being on the retail side of it, I don't typically go to that cigar because I want to sell that as opposed to smoke it as a shift cigar, like, you know, Nate's mentioned.
I would
before.
say the draw on this is phenomenal, like Nate was saying
fantastic.
earlier. I mean, the whole time it's just been consistent all the way through.
I also want to thank. Yeah, it was. I want to thank Bobby for bringing the bottle. I think this is fantastic. I do appreciate that. I always
We're gonna also have another bottle. I'm going to open up the Blanton's on the second part too.
That's fair. That's fair.
You're not going to like what I have to say about Blanton's. I'll tell you that right now.
I don't give a fuck.
So I also want to thank. I want to thank Altadis USA. They've been a huge support. Josh and Paul for doing all the work. Josh was on recently. We're going to get back on again. It's always good to have him on. We're going to be smoking the Monte Cristo White Series, which is what I do want to get. We'll pour another glass of the Duke with that. Fantastic cigar, Altadis. Thank you for the support. You see behind Spencer there. You got Upman. You got Romeo Julieta. You have the Monte Cristo logo. I will say that that Reserva Real Nicaragua we smoked, that was very well received in the garage, and that one is going to be coming back out on the shelves. It's on some shelves near you. Check that out. And other good Altadis products.
When's the Tinder Box going to get that?
It should be hopefully this week. You know,
so no Royal customers. They need to go back to Tinder Box.
Easy. I said what I said last week. And also BS Cigar Company. I think the BS cigars are smoking very well. And I appreciate all the help from Eric Espinosa and all the people from Alec Bradley, Ryan Ponist, especially for get him back on for helping us out with get that Placencia blend out there. It's been fantastic, well received. So check that out as well, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers to what's that? I already said that. Yeah, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast.
Share,
share, follow, enjoy it. Hopefully, welcome back to the garage, gentlemen and ladies that aren't in the garage but watching. I saw Diana's on right now. So, guys, cheers. Thank you very much. And if you guys are listening to it live or you're watching the video, we're going to continue on. If you're listening to the audio side of it, make sure that you check out part 1 and part 2, which we're going to get into here next. Cheers. Yeah, the guitar riff. Yeah,
I like that.
You do.
Yeah.
Does anyone need a break?
What did you think? I want to hear what you thought of the fucking.
I like the enthusiasm.
I like how he doesn't give up.
It was very different, like you said. Very unique.
Nate Hale saying. Nate Hale just commented, "Terrible whiskey." Oh man, I thought you were just.
Good thing this is bourbon.
But I can't help but let the price get in my way when I'm thinking about it. And I think
Hey, we give him the mic for the video. This is between the episodes here.
And between the lines.
Sure.
I think Spencer's using the restroom too.
Please. Hey, this is Jonathan. I think,
Turn that the other way. So you see
I think the whiskey was very unique, like you said. I thought it was a good take on it. I think the fact that it has John Wayne's name on it, I think that's adding $40 to the price probably. I think at that $70-$80 price point, I think it's a unique whiskey. I would definitely try it. I'd probably buy a bottle a year.
That's a fair assessment.
At $120, probably pretty rarely I would want to try it, but that's about it. But I think it's very good.
But for the taste itself, without price included, or you have to.
Yeah, I would drink it. I mean, I would definitely drink it. I think it's very.
But you were
tasty.
saying with me, like once you know the price, you have to factor it into the review.
Yeah,
in my
I
opinion.
can't help but yeah, value to enjoyment, ratio there.
Well, because again, I mean, to bring in the company that you work with, it's like if Ricky comes out with a CAO and it's a $9 or even call it a $12 CAO, like say. We were talking like Ricky puts out an anniversary cigar for him being with the company, right? 10-year cigar or whatever. If he comes out with a killer blend that's like a MSRP of like $13, $14, which is expensive for a CAO, I think that it's justified. But if Cohiba comes out with that same cigar, I expect it to be over $20,
right?
Because I'm not saying it's better or worse or.
Well, we did that with
justified.
the V19 this year. So we did a limited edition CAO. CAO customer price point is $8.
Okay.
And we jumped that thing up to $12 as a limited edition just to see how it would do. And people went crazy over it. It sold out immediately. But we built a base on an $8 cigar. The same $8 people were willing to pay $12 because they knew
it's limited edition.
Yeah, they knew it was limited, and they knew.
Was there anything
CAO
different from it?
Yeah, it was a different blend. It was
an amped up version of the flathead,
spark
right?
plug. Yeah, the flathead spark plug.
Yeah,
but
it's a good cigar. But again, like we looked at it from retail standpoint, that it's like we were hesitant to bring on a quote flathead at $12.
Yeah,
because we didn't know how it would sell at our shop.
Yeah, it sold, and then today we're bringing in Cohiba Royale into the shop. This is going to be $28, $29. But people are expecting it's a high end Cohiba, and so there's just the expectation point is there, and with the price point, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. But you have to really
Do you think it's a generation with price though? Like
what?
A generational gap. So like for me, I'm 33.
Okay.
Like to me, I'm gonna enjoy.
You look good for 40.
Absolutely, I have hair. You don't.
Yeah.
Part 2.
No. I mean, no.
What? Yeah, that's the subject. What are you saying when you ask that
well,
question?
I'm saying like, I don't think a lot of younger generation, like millennials and younger, from like millennials, don't really pay attention to price. I think they have to do their own budgeting.
I disagree. I do disagree on that one.
You think it's the exact opposite?
The older guys will sit there and spend whatever.
Yeah, because you have it.
If you think it's really good, they'll spend whatever.
When you say they don't care about price, is that what you're saying?
Well, I think
they don't pay attention to it.
I think in the sense of if they want it, they're going to get it regardless. If it's an Xbox game or if it's as long as it appeals
that
to them.
point, yeah, they don't know what money actually costs. Yeah, no, absolutely, they don't care.
Or if they want it, they're going to get it.
At the end of the day,
it's something they want, they're going to make a way to get it.
I'm not saying like bourbon and cigars are like whatever millennial or whatever they are want, but I'm saying if it was like a high, like if it was the Jordans or if it was a limited edition, shirt or Gucci or those things, though, I don't feel like the younger generation cares that much. They want to be able to floss and do whatever they want and be like, yeah, because flossing in the sense of,
so flossing, Steve, is go ahead and tell.
it's like it's more for like people's Instagrams and like I have all this good stuff, but reality you probably have nothing.
Ray says millennials don't care about price when daddy's paying.
But
that is true. That is true.
But to me, that's where I'm thinking about, like, they're going to buy whatever they want because it's the coolest, awesome fad. To me, if I say, hey, millennial or whatever, this is a limited edition, you can only get this bottle right now. I think an older generation person, like, it's not essential to them. It's like, oh, I saw this rapper have this bottle. I had this celebrity have this bottle. That appeals to them. And that's why the price doesn't matter.
How deep in the bourbon world are you?
Deep.
So are you talking like resale value of things? Or are you just talking about rarity? Or are you talking about
I would
actual
say
taste?
my collections.
No. I'm just talking about, like, do you buy a bottle because you like it? Because if Blanton's cost $200, you would get it because you enjoy the taste of it, right?
I like Blanton's. It has a special meaning to me. So yes.
Okay. But if Blanton's was costing $50 and then it's harder to get in Ohio, so you couldn't sell it for more than that. I'm not saying you're reselling it, but if Blanton's cost $30, you would still get it, correct?
I would buy it just because I enjoy the bottle.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say, is that you like what you like. And if you like something, you're in a financial position where you can get whatever you want.
I'm blessed enough that my wife makes a ton of money that I can spend her. No, I'm kidding. Within
Are we
reason.
live?
Oh, we're live. Yeah.
No,
She knows.
I'm very lucky that
Holly is a great woman, actually.
My wife's absolutely amazing. I can't wait to.
Way too good for you. I
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. But
goes for you and you and you. Definitely you, Shannon.
Jonathan,
I didn't even know you were still here.
Here's the thing. I get more pleasure with my bottles that I buy. I've only did one pour. I haven't re-poured mine.
Really?
And the reason why is because I sip on my whiskey and I enjoy it.
It's fair.
And I don't
And
care.
you like other people to try it too.
I want to see everybody's opinion. I'm not here to hoard like a special bottle. Like,
right.
I'll be the first one to open. Like, there's maybe 4 or 5 bottles in my collection. I'm not gonna. I mean, those are special. But in the long term, I don't care. I want everybody to have the same experience.
No, I got you.
And that's, to me, is the fun of bourbon.
Yeah.
That's the fun of cigars. Like, is everybody's enjoying it and everybody's having a good time, price aside, because it shouldn't matter.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think
that's the way I look at it.
I think the cool part about it is that you bought a bottle that we could not try, and you're letting people try it. I think that's cool as
100%.
shit.
No, I appreciate it. I like Ray's comment here. Millennials don't care about price when daddy's paying. Daddy is either actual parents or the government.
This unemployment thing has gotten out.
All right, Jesus. All right, let's start part 2.
A week, I would be buying more bourbon.
Yeah, you and me both. All right, so let's get into part 2 here. Bringing this up here. All right,
so don't like Blanton's.
I'm just fucking with you.
Do you actually like Blanton's?
It's fine.
All right. No. What Spencer said actually about Blanton's, and I don't know if we really got into it.
Why?
No,
we never finished that. I want to.
So I agree with him actually on this. Is that part of the reason that Blanton's, I think, is a great bottle of whiskey, especially for
the price.
The price.
If you get a bottle of Blanton's,
Bobby, listen to this. Listen.
I'm listening. Nate, you can have the first pour.
There it is. So
Is that because of what happened earlier?
We don't talk about that.
For Bobby, $55 for a bottle of Bland's, I think it's a great whiskey.
Awesome.
I think that it's also marketed extremely well when you have limited toppers and you have to collect the toppers and
Limited
and all
supply too.
limited supply on top of that. I think it's definitely something. He's not listening. All right, so let's
I'm
go
listening.
to part 2.
I'm listening. I was listening. Finish your. I was listening.
I was pretty much done. He actually said that if that came in a different bottle and wasn't marketed as well, it probably would not have had the hold that it's had. But I think that's I think that's a statement. I think it's a fair statement about Buffalo Trace doing that.
Yeah, if there are 50 bottles of Bland's on the shelf and it came in a different bottle, it would not be as well sought after.
Right. I agree.
But because there are limited bottles and you can get for $55 if you get that bottle, that is a great bottle of bourbon for $55.
I think it's a brilliant marketing strategy for a good bottle of bourbon. And again, I think that is accurately priced at $60.
If it was 15 years ago, was it 15 years ago, Nate, when the factory caught on fire?
I can't remember exactly.
So Bland's was
Distillery or
yes.
house?
Well, they had the house that had all the barrels of it, of Bland's, because they had. You remember how it got all destroyed for Bland's?
I don't remember when that was.
What's the point?
The whole point was Bland's was readily available at the same. It was.
So yes, maybe it was. I'm not saying you're wrong, but the bourbon craze in the meantime has gone nuts. And so when you have a bottle, we've talked about this on the podcast before, is that when you can buy a bottle for $50, call it give or take, and the secondary is calling for it because it's rare and hot.
Weller 107, Weller Full Proof.
Yeah, so when you have that and you can resell it, it's not going to stay on the shelf. That's the sad part about it. We've talked. I've talked about that in depth about that. Is that I think that unfortunately hurts it.
I will in a bit.
Well,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, let me get started with part 2. All right.
Is it black?
Hey.
Oh, that's black. Okay, yeah, that's a different story.
Jingling key. I gotta get keys out here.
Do you have a horn?
All right, ready?
Squirrel?
Yes, exactly. I need silence so I know where to cut this. All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 120 something. I think 123. Thank you, Nate. Nate's good job. 123, part 2. We were drinking on part 1. If you guys are listening to the audio, we were drinking Legendary Duke, Grand Cru, Founders Reserve. I got Bobby Crow and Spencer Lappin still in the garage with me. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thanks, sir.
For those listening live, if you guys are listening to the audio, listen live if you're available on Wednesday nights. We typically go 2+ hours, and we enjoy the conversation we just did. If you're listening to the audio, we did have a little bit of a segment in between where we're talking a little bit behind the scenes. So you guys always check that out on YouTube or on Facebook. The video stays there. But if you guys want to be a part of the conversation, join the Bourbon and BS community page, and also follow and like the Bourbon and BS podcast on Facebook or on YouTube if it's more convenient. If you guys want to share it, that's great. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. They supplied the My Father cigar, which we reviewed in the first part. So if you're tuning in at this point live, or if you're listening to the audio, please listen to part 1 if you guys are curious about the My Father brand or the cigar and also the whiskey. But Tinder Box, thank you for that. Tinder Box at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. They have a My Father special for Father's Day this weekend coming up. And we want to wish a very happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And cheers. Yeah, cheers. Got cheers in the garage. I like that. It comes later.
What's the over-under?
That'll be next year. I think we're past that. With also Altadis USA, thank you for the support behind Spencer. If you're watching the video, we have the makers of Romeo Julieta, Monte Cristo, and H. Upman, and countless others. We appreciate the support. Josh Bentley, who's been on the podcast several times, we appreciate him pushing that through the last 2 years. Paul Waller as well. Shout out to him. Thank you very much. Fantastic cigars. You just lit up, Bobby, the Monte Cristo White Series Rothschild. Fantastic cigar. We wanted to try that with the Duke. You wanted something a little milder. So I think they classify that medium. I still think it's like a mild to medium is how I would describe it. BS Cigar Company, thank you very much. And also patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You guys were a huge help to get us through the, I guess the I don't know, the quarantine, but the time where it was like
pandemic.
The opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it was just great because, you know, it's not free to put this on, to post it on the audio, to do this. So those things help do this. And now we're in the, you know, third year of doing this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I also want to thank Nate, Dustin, and everyone else that supports it on a weekly basis. Good to have everyone back in the garage here. Shannon, Jonathan, Sean, you guys as well. Kyle, who's taking pictures again tonight. So I want to post those content. Kyle,
Where does Kyle go?
It's tough to say, really.
He's got
Gotta
nothing
put a
to
tracker
do.
on that guy. So with this, I want to frame this. We're take the turn and go. This is where we get in the topic part. So those tuning in now live on Facebook, this is where we, and Jonathan says, feels like part 7. This is where we kind of
in Vietnam too.
He's right there.
Holy cow.
All right. So
The war never leaves. I get it.
So with it being Father's Day and everything, so this is something that a friend of mine, Chip, who I just saw recently, and I do want to raise a glass to Chip. He said some very nice things. I've known Chip for many years. I'm going back to high school basically at this point, and he was at my father's funeral 3 years ago, and this it really does. It always brings tears to my eyes when I see it the last 3 years on Facebook, because he posted it. So he says, I lost an influential man in my life today, and I can't help but share my thoughts. I lost more than a friend's father, more than a baseball coach, but a man who helped mold me who I am today. So we go back to middle school. I'm going to kind of scroll through this because I probably will. Fuck you, Nate, for
You can take your time and read it, man. It's worth reading.
So he didn't.
I think it's very important.
He didn't comprehend the life lessons he was teaching me at the time. The whole quote, "When you round third," this is for baseball players or
This
fans.
is Steve's father. That the story is
Coach Crane, yeah. My dad. So he says, when you round third headed for home, you have to make that turn and go. So this is kind of what the topic is tonight. He didn't realize it was just about a baseball term, but he was teaching me the game of life. 20 years ago, our team was making one hell of a comeback. I can't read this. I'm going to fuck you, Nate.
The over-under was 4 minutes into the second part.
I'm going to get choked up. No, I can read it.
Okay. I lost an influential man in my life today and can't help but share my thoughts. I lost more than a friend's father, more than a baseball coach, but a man who helped mold me into who I am today. I met Coach Crane, again, Steve's father, while in middle school, and he was my third base coach in high school. Like most, if not all young kids, I didn't comprehend the life lessons he was teaching me at the time. The whole, when you're round third, headed for home, you have to make that turn and go. Talk wasn't just a baseball term. He was teaching me the game of life. 20 years ago, yes, 20 years ago, our team was making one hell of a comeback. An epic of comebacks. We were down 9 or 10 runs. Apparently, your buddy likes to elaborate a little bit.
No, we probably were.
Okay. We were down 9 or 10 runs at the top of the last inning. We had hit after hit to climb back to be down by 1 with 2 runs, with 2 outs. Of course, Chip was standing at second base. A short liner into the gap in right center field, and Chip was off. As he looked and saw the look in Coach Crane's eyes, he knew he had to turn and go. He doesn't remember him waving him to go home or not. As he turned and went, he knew he was going to come close. As he looked at home plate, coming closer, he saw the ball out of the corner of his eye. He slid into home plate the only way he knew how, Charlie Hustle style, Pete Rose. Right under the tag. Chip was safe. The epic comeback was complete. They ended the game, shook hands, the other team, and turned and looked at Coach Crane. They said, Chip, it's about time you took that turn like I've been telling you to. Since I've stayed friends with his sons, Steve, I've been able to enjoy the occasional, hey, how are you? How's life? How's your mom and dad doing? And none other than the old man's version of baseball, softball. The answer is always the same. Great, or it's going good, except one Thursday evening about 4 years ago. He had the, well, I'm thinking about getting a divorce talk with him. He looked at Chip with that same look he gave Chip 16 years before and said, I've seen you do it before. When you round third and head for home, you better turn and go. That's about the time Chip realized that Mr. Crane, Coach Crane, was teaching him life lessons, not just the game of baseball. Whatever you do in life, you take the turn and go. You go hard and you don't look back. Chip says, thank you, Coach Crane. R.I.P.
Cheers.
Cheers to Coach Crane. So that was posted, what, like 3 years ago or so?
3 years ago.
On Face. Did you know that was coming?
No.
So Chip is a buddy from yours, high school. It sounds like almost grade school even. At least he knew Coach Crane from grade school, and he posted that. So, I mean, we got, you sent this to me and Bobby earlier today, and, you asked me what topic I wanted to do. And I was working yesterday, and I basically said, I don't know. Why don't you talk to Bobby and you let me know what he decides and I'll make an executive decision.
I said, you're helpful.
And you said, I'm helpful and very professional.
Also, he did not listen to any of my options for my son.
Yeah. So Bobby gave him options and then
shot down like my dreams.
So I was talking to some people. I was like, hey, what topic can we do? Should we do focus again? Should we do change? Should we do workout habits? What can we do? And me selfishly knowing that Father's Day was right around the corner, I didn't want to bring up the Father's Day topic. But, we got Father's Day coming up. So when you resaw that repost on Facebook, and that is one of the good things about social media, you get to see memories. A few years from now, we're going to all see that we reposted this podcast on Facebook.
6.5.
Yeah. And you see that it actually happened. So when you saw that, was that a motto from your father, or is that how do you do life?
That was the whole thing for me. Is I told Chip is like I had a good relationship with my dad, but so when I went through my divorce, I was after doing some marriage counseling, I called my dad to a lunch, and I said, yeah, so I think we're gonna get a divorce, and we don't spend as much time together. We've kind of grown apart. It's college sweethearts, and and I still am close with my ex, and if she calls, pick up immediately, and whatever she needs, and it's kind of a good relationship given the circumstances. But when I told my my dad that, he's like, yeah, we always wondered how you guys made that work, and I'm like, that was the dad son type of thing. But when I saw that, it was like this. It gave more depth.
To him as a person,
I
knew what was going on.
Well, I knew about, but when we were talking about all this stuff, for me, it's something that I've struggled with, and having Bobby on and Spencer, especially when I look and Bobby, you were kicking around some ideas about like job interviews and like going for it and doing all that stuff. This kind of all clicked, and knowing Spencer, one of the things that I've always struggled with personally is that I tend to not overthink as much anymore, but there was a good chunk of my life where I took a long time to know what the right move was. And in the baseball metaphor, maybe, turn and look. And then you hesitate long enough that now you can't go, right? So then now you got to go back to third, because you hesitated. You didn't listen to your base coach. You didn't trust your gut. You knew that you were going to make it, or it was going to be close, but you should be able to make it if you hustle and you really put your nose down and don't look back. And, Spencer, having you on, I know we've had a lot of conversations over the years that I don't want to say you have an easier time with it, but there are things in your life that once you recognize what you've reflected about and what you think is right, you go home. Mm-hmm. And I don't all the time. I think a lot of people actually struggle with that. I think it's something that sometimes will pay off in the end, because you don't just, turn and just go blindly and, the ball's already coming and you're going to be out at home. Not to beat that metaphor to the ground, but I think that that's something that I think we should talk about. I mean, this is something that I think a lot of people now, for example, I said it, I think it was last week or the week before, where it was like the felt cute, might delete later. A lot of people just do shit and they don't think about the consequences. And then when it ends up burning up in their face, they look at it, they're like, well, that's okay. I can just delete that account, or I can, now I can file for bankruptcy, or I can sell the house that I shouldn't have gotten, and now I'm in financial ruins, but that's okay. And it's like there's I think a fine line that people walk to do things in a smarter frame of mind, other than just react out of emotion. And other people like myself, I think in my past, is someone that will overthink it, and all of a sudden you look back and you're like, why did I take that long to make this decision that I knew I had to make? Is it because, and I'll frame it to you guys, is it because I didn't want to put myself out there, fear of the unknown? Is it because I didn't want to hurt someone else's feelings or disappoint someone? Or is it just because you're scared? I mean, like, I mean, I don't know. To you guys, I mean, Bobby, you want to talk about, like, job interviews. You want to talk about the fact that, you got married, you moved to Texas, you're working on the house, and you want to do all these things, and you just kind of go ahead and do some of them.
I mean, I'm a lot of trial by error also.
Yeah.
But my error itself has always been because I put enough determination and drive into it. It's not like I'm half-assing it.
Right.
That I balance that line of, am I going to crash and burn, or am I going to get over that hill? So if it's like an interview, or if it's a coming back while my wife's pregnant in Dallas and working on the house, like, it's one of those things for me that it has to be done one way or the other to get over the hump.
Right.
And when I say hump, I mean, it could be very loose for whatever anybody else is going through, right? For me, the hump is I need to complete this project, and I need to make sure I'm setting up my family for success, but also finding the time in between that stress and all that hard work to come and enjoy and reflect. Like for the podcast itself, I get to reflect and come back and mellow out and enjoy a bourbon and a cigar and have a good conversation about life topics, because it turns into my self-reflection time to help me stay focused, as you would use, to recenter myself in the right direction, so I'm not getting lost with just gas.
Yeah.
Because I'm all gas. I don't stop.
Well, and with the trial by error, mentality, I mean, that there are times where you turn off the brain completely. Given the same metaphor, it's kind of like if you have that coach on the third base and their hands are up and stopping you, and you just blow through that sign because you're like, well, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. And you're like, well, there's a lot of other factors at play. Not saying you're careless, but I think that is something that sometimes.
I think my risk factor is different.
How so?
So I think there's a lot of risk and reward, and depending on what you're working on or whatever that goal might be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm careless. I flirt. I flirt with that.
You flirt with carelessness.
I get to that point. I'm like, is that risk going to be to that reward? I'm that thrill seeker per se.
Okay.
And that's based off my gut. Right. So my gut's telling me, all right, let's get this done. Let's get this done. All right. I'm not putting my full hand in front of my face, not keeping blinders. I'm still like, do I need to check if that pitcher's going to like throw me out at second before I try to steal for third? So I'm flirting that type of way of like,
okay,
the coach is like, what is he fucking doing?
But, I would hate coaching you. Yeah, absolutely, on the base pass. Yeah, I feel like you would not listen to me on the.
But I'm still conscious of it. And then I would say 8 out of 10 times in my life, it always works out. I haven't been burnt completely. It's not like I'm running home and I'm losing everything. Can I steal second? Okay.
Yeah.
Can I steal third? I know I'm not going to steal home. I have to now be more conscious of that.
Bobby, I can see you, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I do. I
hope I'm doing good with the baseball metaphors for you.
Yeah.
South Korean baseball is on fire right now, for the record, if any of you guys are watching it.
I watched like 2 games. That was
the
it.
Dragons. Bet all your money on the Dragons. I'm assuming there's a team called the Dragons.
Probably. No, Bobby, I can definitely see you someone where I'm like giving you the sign to take a 3-0 pitch, and then you just swing away. I can absolutely see that.
So,
and your defense is like, it was right down the middle, and I knew I'd get on second. It was going to be a double, and I'm like, "That's cool. You're benched."
It was my opportunity. It was my opportunity.
So
congratulations, you're benched.
I'll keep the baseball reference going here. So
Okay.
for me personally, I make that decision before the ball is hit, when you're at second base. So you got a couple of choices, in baseball. You basically have to make your decision when it's happening. So I don't make that decision on third base. I make that decision when I'm in between second and third base.
Yeah.
So I want to know what I'm going to do before I have to make the big leap.
Mm-hmm.
So I make my decision to go to home, when I'm in between second and third base. And for me personally, I've already calculated the risk in between it. And then it's, all right, let's go. And if we get out, like, Bobby had mentioned, then the decision was the right decision.
Yeah.
The decision could be the right decision, but the results couldn't be the right results, if that makes sense.
Yes. But sometimes, you have that, you vision, you envision the what could happen. You know what I mean? It's like, you're prepared to take the turn and go, but then the results of what's happening at the moment will halt you.
But don't let the results change your decision. So, relationship wise, Steve, I think this is probably where, me and you differ is, you like to make everybody happy. You like to make sure all your bases are covered,
right?
And you don't like to take that type of risk. Like, Bobby likes to take, a certain type of risk. But I think if you calculate all the risks ahead of time, then you let the decision lie because you've already calculated, the percentage of you going home, to continue the metaphor.
Yeah, I think, so I thought about you, Spencer, being on the podcast, and we had you had a previous relationship, and I'm not gonna get into total details, but he
was cute.
You can't say that anymore.
He was handsome.
No. All right, so I remember having a conversation with Spencer, and I think this is part of it, because this is something that you got two sides of it, just like anything else, and you have everything in between. And I was talking to you, Spencer, about an ex.
Yep.
And I remember I was talking on the phone. I was actually driving somewhere, and I think I asked you how everything was going. And you're like, well, it's not working out with so and so. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, it was something with the family being involved, and it wasn't adding up in a positive way for the bigger picture of what you envisioned of what you want out of a relationship. Now, there's someone like me that you're right, I would probably try to figure it out. How do I make this work? And I'm not saying that it's careless on the other side, but then there's the other extreme where someone's just like, someone says something, you're like, no, we're breaking up. That wasn't the case. This was something that your values were so important when it came to family, and it just wasn't stacking up where this person was going to fit into the rest of your life. And you were like, so I can't do it anymore. It's not going to work out. That's what I remember that conversation. If you remember that
Sure.
That phone call. And I admired that about you. And I admire it about Bobby and other people, that they can have these aha moments where it's like, I can push, I can struggle. Like, jobs are the same way. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a great career choice to stay here, but I don't know what I'm going to do outside of this. So you keep fighting. And the next thing you know, it's like 2 years have passed, and you're like, 2 years ago, I knew this.
So I think Bobby and I are kind of similar in this aspect where, we're more risk takers, but it's calculated risk. So sure. We know the risk that we're taking before we take it, but thought has gone into that risk, and thought has gone into rounding second. And you're not going to have I apologize for keep going back to this baseball reference, but you're never going to have the perfect guy at the plate for it to be right. A no-brainer to go home.
Right.
You got to have that decision in your mind that if this happens, that is my breaking point, or that is the point that I'm turning and going for home. And there's no need to hesitate. And
you have your standards.
You have your standards. You have if chips fall where they may and they don't fall the right way, that's okay. And 8 out of 10, that's pretty good. But in baseball, it's 3. If you're 3 out of 10, you're a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? But if you have
take steroids, yeah. Wait, go ahead.
You look great. Don't worry about it.
It's called replacement therapy.
Whatever gets you through it, bro. I just saw
I have
the
a great doctor. Yeah, it's called
Sammy and Maguire thing.
Idols.
Yeah.
Goals.
Goal.
In my mind, so I'm going to go to the no looking back thing. Now,
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that you and other people can maintain relationships with people that were in your past. For me, that doesn't add value to my personal life, and it doesn't help me in the current situation I'm in with a current relationship. So I care about the people, I care about decisions that were made before, but to hold on to those any longer than I have to, for me, does nothing. It's not cold-hearted. You want to give a person as soft a landing as possible in my case. But as far as continue to make sure that landing's as soft for them as possible when it's out of my control, that's where I made a conscious decision that I can't control everyone's landing. I want to make sure that they're okay as far as I can take them. But after I've taken them and do what I think is right, I'm going to, it's their life and it's my life, and me looking back does me no service. And that's selfish, but that's also, how I can, that might be my defense mechanism to how I can keep moving forward.
I mean, I would have based off of like just any relationships or friends. I mean, I'm a giver. I mean, just like with my bourbon, just like with just anything I do in life. If you need something, I'm going to help you out. Whatever it is, if you're going to call me at midnight and say, shit, you need me to go bury the body. What body? Let's go. You know what I mean?
I like you, bro. That's good, man. That's good to know.
It's one of those things.
Exchange numbers.
We have been DMing each other the whole time.
A lot of plans.
Jealous?
But
no.
But to fully get like, I'm not going. More power to the people who can be friends with their exes. More power to, depending on what part of the relationships they've ever been in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's your relationship. That's it. But me personally, I don't think you can truly move on when you have that baggage. And so if that baggage is even a phone call that's going to distract me from my home run, I don't want that baggage to get me to a home run, because I wouldn't be moving in life forward. Or would I be where I'm at today?
Yeah.
Like my baggage right now is letting go of the house. That's my.
Yeah, we talked about that last night.
That's my baggage.
So you got a house in Columbus and you got a house in Dallas.
Correct.
Okay.
So my house in Columbus, and I mean, I posted stuff on my Facebook. I took this house to the studs with no training, just my willpower.
A lot of YouTube.
Not even just like,
and guidance from a good friend of yours. Yeah.
I mean, it's not just an investment. You have some passion for this house.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like my buddy Mike Adams.
Yeah.
Right. So he's a contractor up in Akron. He's great at his work. I'm going to give you a little plug. If you have anything in Akron, reach out to him. He's a great guy.
Sure.
Besides that plug, I mean, but he's to have that friendship and be like, hey, we're going to build this deck. We're going to start off with the yard. We're going to build the deck and the fence.
Yeah.
Right. Now, okay, I'm going to be tearing down all the plaster and lathe and all the silt that's coming down. Mind you, my wife living in the house with me. That's a whole different thing. So also getting married, why remodeling the house that was not completed? Also then having our house broken into and everything stolen on our honeymoon.
Where'd you go on the honeymoon?
Oh, in Mexico.
Very nice.
So it's
details, bro.
Silver lining.
Details, bro.
It's one of those things. Like, I could have either one or two things. I could have just canceled my honeymoon, went back to fucking Columbus and dealt with shit, or what happened, and I could enjoy it with my wife.
Right.
Was it unneeded stress? Was there a lot of stress from that? Absolutely. But
would anything have been gained, or would you have missed out on an unbelievable opportunity to go to Mexico?
It's my honeymoon, so it would not compare.
Right.
That's a whole different thing.
Sure.
So now I'm back in Columbus, right? I've been here for almost 2 weeks. I'm going to probably be here one more week because I'm waiting for my countertops to be installed, working on the kitchen, getting it ready. My brother's going to be renting it out.
Sure.
Which I'm excited that my brother and his girlfriend's going to be able to make that their home. It's going to be I'm really like, I put my blood, sweat, and tears in this fucking place. My dad is basically saying to me, like, let them have their home.
It's just stuff. It's
It's
big
just a
stuff.
house,
It's
right?
big stuff, but it's stuff.
It's let them put the pictures they want to. You can always patch up that hole. You don't have to make it 100% yours.
You got a new life in Dallas. Move on.
I have a son that's going to be, hopefully healthy, born September 9th.
Name Steve?
No, I joke around. It's my wife's not going to let me name him this, but I always call him Merlin.
Very wise.
I would not let you name him that either.
But
put a poll out there of whether or
but
not
it's a fun
the
joke
kid should be
now.
named
It's
Merlin.
like, what's your son's name going to be? Merlin. He's a wizard.
It's not a thing, by the way.
Oh, it definitely is.
You see where Magic the Gathering is racist now, by the way?
Go on, Bobby.
But now I get to now talk about it.
No, don't talk about that.
I get to go move into a beautiful house in Dallas, which we
Right.
close on, by the way, on the 30th this month.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
So it's like,
You got to let go of this house in Columbus to move on to your new place. And
for me to let go, I have to complete it for where I'm at, so my brother can move in, and I'm done with it. And that's where
you got to move on to your next step in life.
Yeah, because I have a son and I have other responsibilities.
Mhm.
My life's going to change for the better, and I'm on top of that. Then now interviewing with the opportunities at Verizon.
And that's
So
what we
it's
were
like-
talking about, right?
So I've been doing my interviews, and it's like, it's all, to me, it's like your attitude. It's about your empathy. It's like, there's star format questions like situation, task, action, results. Anybody can make that shit up. I feel like when you're interviewing, you have to be yourself and show what you can bring to the team, like a baseball team. Because if you don't have the good attitude, you can have all the talent, but if you don't have the right attitude, you're nothing.
So here's where I look at this metaphor, and I'm looking at what you're saying right now, is that it's very interesting to me. Ray says he has a friend in Hong Kong whose name is Merlin, and he's American. So I mean, apparently it's still, I wouldn't call it a popular name, but it's still a thing.
There's a guy in Hong Kong who has it.
So there'd be two kids named Merlin. Bobby
likes rare stuff. So.
I
His
look
name's
at,
gonna be Duke now.
there you go. Yeah. John or Wayne. I
Or just
look at
Jim.
it. Third base is that you already made it, right? So in this metaphor that we started this conversation, one of the things that I am constantly working on is, and I think,
How far into this baseball analogy do you want to go? Because you're not allowed to make like the first or the third out at third. So you haven't made it.
How many
so,
outs do we have?
so
two outs. So you can't
Are
make
we
the
at the bottom of the ninth or the bottom of the seventh?
bottom of the second on a
so when the
Tuesday
Cubs
night.
won the World Series, it was 108 years, and there's so many stitches in a baseball.
Were you at that game?
I was not at that game.
I was very disappointed.
hammered drunk. Anyways, no, what I was saying is that
Go Indians.
I think that's the thing that I actually really I like having people like Ray in my life. I like having, he said that, Spencer's spot on, because I think you two would actually really, really get along when you talk about the way you handle things in life. Relationships, he asked about that. Career, family, how you handle like houses, just everything in life. Is that I think embracing change a lot of times for me is a cliche, but when I look at that metaphor, and he says, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I look at it as
What are you
that
talking about, Wells?
when I already made it to third, I've made it. You know what I mean? Like home is that question mark. I don't know if I'm gonna get out or I'm gonna be safe. That's one of the things that I've had to work on over the years.
But
is because
third does nothing for you.
exactly. That's
So-
kind of
so
where I was
that-
going.
so
I think,
that-
yeah, you see where I'm going.
Well, still a scoring position, but third base does
He doesn't
nothing
take
for
any
you.
risks.
So
You're
it's a,
waiting on someone else to bring you home, and
Right.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I was getting at with it, is that
So
you're on
what-
third. Hang on. You're on third, and that was my whole thing, is that what Spencer, you were saying is that, yeah, Nate, you chimed in, they couldn't hear you, but you're in scoring position, but you're not taking the action yourself. And that's the thing I've had to work on over the years, is that it's something that I need to be able to do myself. And
but I think you'd be the type of guy that would be, we've known each other 10 years, some shit like that, close to that.
9 years. Like
9 years, just like the bourbon.
oh God, 12 years like the cigar.
where you would be standing on third being like, should I have gone home?
Right.
Should I have gone back to second?
Right.
So you gotta.
It feels like the movie Hook here.
Yeah. So but I think
Jack, go home.
here's the thing with you, Steve, and you're about as thoughtful as a person as I can, that I know, and sometimes it's a detriment to you because you do overthink it, is the right answer.
Exactly.
But you're not willing to all the time put your whole heart into it, which is a good thing because it doesn't get you in trouble sometimes, but in a bad way, it doesn't get you to the full reward.
Right.
You gotta risk it to get the biscuit.
There you go. Soggy biscuit. Exactly.
Just soggy. No, the reason I want to talk about this tonight is because I think this is something that I have been working on, and I think this is something as people are getting back out in the world and going back to their jobs, is I have conversations with people that there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
So what do you think your dad was saying to him? He obviously had the sports metaphor as, hey, you put your head down, you just ran home. But what do you think he was talking when he was talking about a divorce? What do you think your dad was telling Chip at the time?
You already know what the right answer is. And that's something that, again, I think that's something that, when I talk to you, Spencer, and Ray and Bobby and other people in my life, is you have to actually follow that advice. You have to trust your gut. I think this is something that I know that I'm not alone in this. And that's where I say there's the two sides of it where people can't, you say not to be cold-hearted, Spencer. There are plenty of people that it is completely just the self-interest with no holds barred, which I think is also wrong. Just like any other issue, if you go too far to one side or too far to the other side, you're not trying to see the whole picture.
But as we get older, you're approaching 40. I'm, late 30s, you're early 30s. As
You're
you
approaching 42.
why don't you go fuck yourself? As you approach these things, or at least as I've started to approach things in life, I'd rather have one shitty year, one shitty 6 months than have a shitty 3 years. Hopefully we got 80 to 100 years of this thing, but I would rather have one shitty year than have 3 shitty years, knowing that's the wrong decision.
I want to repurpose the question.
I think that's something that, and I want to hear the question. I think, Spencer, I think that's absolutely right. And that's what I've learned. Surround yourself with good people and that have that mindset. Or if you're on the other side, I'm not saying that is, if you're just doing things for yourself, you have to listen to the people around you. But having people in my life, I know that I have gotten better at that, because you're absolutely right, is that you hem-haw around a decision that you already know is going to hurt you. It's the fear of the unknown. So it's not just the fact that you have a better option out there.
It's not that the grass is greener. It's just
Correct.
sometimes your grass isn't that green where you're at right now.
Exactly.
So you don't necessarily know if there's a better option, but you know that your option right now isn't the best option either.
Absolutely. Bobby, what's your question?
And this is no attack towards you, Steve.
Oh, shots fired.
I think Bland's is fine, and I like the Duke.
I don't give a fuck about that. What would your dad's advice to you now be if he was still here?
So it was interesting to me. So post divorce, and I was in this on and off relationship.
Just even after all that, just right now,
Let me tell you something. So I had a somewhat of a not complicated relationship with my father, but those that know me, it was not as open as, say, like the whole Chip reference that we were talking about. And then that story is that it wasn't as open with that side of it, as far as the dialogue. I also have had that in my life as the person in my father's position, not as a dad, but just people that I don't necessarily always put my advice out there necessarily. There was a time where I was in an on and off relationship between now and then, when he was still alive. And he told me, as he softened up, as I looked at it in his older age.
Or you matured.
Matured at 70 years old.
No, I'm saying maybe you matured a little bit more through that.
So I was, but I'm saying, like, as far as the dialogue is what I'm saying, is that hearing your father say is like, how long are you going to wait on this person to figure their shit out?
To change.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I know now, looking back and if he was in my life now, one of the things that, because I went through all that stuff, it's about handling things now where, yeah, if I would have rushed through this relationship and things, when people say things work out for a reason or whatever, hang on, Bobby. Just like when you're in the audience shaking your head as I'm talking, what I'm saying is that based on my I don't know if it would have necessarily gotten to this point, but I'm happy now. And what I will say is that if I would have just done that back in,
You had your process, which took a little longer.
but because of that, what I'm trying to say is, okay, so my girlfriend now is 25 years old. 5 years ago, if I would have just done that, I would not have met Liz, right? Because she probably would have been 20 at that time.
Still legal.
Facts.
I guess
what I'm saying is that I think everyone. So I agree. I should. That's what I'm saying. I've worked on it, and I like the fact that I'm continuing to grow, and I think that's always the point of this podcast, is about balancing and growth. So for me and anyone listening out there, is that I hope that no matter what stage you are, what age you are, whatever situation you're dealing with, is that you take what you have now and the situation you're dealing with, that hopefully you will be able to take some of the advice. That the reason I bring Spencer on or bring Bobby on this podcast is because I've learned a lot from you guys. That yes, it takes me a while to learn that, and everyone has their own learning curve, or the more accurately, the acceptance of reality, that no matter what it is, I can justify now that I'm happy living with Liz, and she's so many years younger than me, that it wouldn't, I would not have met her because of all this stuff. But it doesn't mean that the alternate future would have not as been as good. So that's
I guess I don't feel like you're answering I understand what you're saying, but the question is, what would your dad say?
My dad would say, figure it out. And so that may not be the answer you're looking for.
No, I know.
My point is that
that's the answer I am looking for.
So that's the thing, is my father would say right now, figure it out. And I think that he would say, now, I'm glad you figured it out. Don't mess it up. That's my father in a nutshell, even softened now, which I appreciate.
Now, do you think that you take after your father and how you go through life?
Yeah, I do. I think we all are impacted by the people that are in your life, parents especially, and there's a certain way that you react.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation with my mom, the anniversary of my father's death. I was over at Liz's moms and stepdads, and I was talking to her about it, and the conversation turned to what's going on in the world today, and we started talking about what Dad would say with what's going on in the world. It was a fun conversation because we didn't know, but it was like when he was 60 years old, I have a very clear understanding of what he would say, that the COVID is bullshit and everything's just because it's election year and blah, 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 blah. And he probably wouldn't do that.
Obama.
He probably would have dropped an Obama. Now, fast forward 10 years later at 70, 72, 70, towards the end of his life, I think that if he was still alive now and he was in his late 70s, I think that he would have a greater understanding. And I think that's the one thing when you say, do I take after my dad? I'll say this, is that it took him, he was very steadfast in his ways, whatever the ways were. And what Spencer was saying, that I sometimes will hesitate and everything else. That's how I take those things, to just because I want to make people happy. It took him 70 plus years to get to a point where he's like, hang on a second, let's look at this. Now, when I see a post from Chip where those side conversations, it was always a part of him. But as far as how he acted, it wasn't just the audience, but he still wanted to be, who he thought he should be, given your kids or people around you or whatever it is, based on how he was brought up.
All right, Steve, pour yourself a little something, because I'm going to go a little deep on you here, if you don't mind here.
I'll just take your glass.
Please.
I got next after you.
Okay.
I'll take plans.
So,
and you guys feel free to chime in from your.
So as we get older, I have more friends who have lost their fathers.
Correct.
But we're still at the age where, most of my friends still have their fathers, but there's definitely some that don't. What changed and you always kind of, at least in my world, you know, I always have my dad, and I work with my dad as kind of, that's a constant in your life. That's always kind of the fallback. That's, you always have that in the back of your head. What do you think changed in you now that we're coming up onto Father's Day? And I don't mean to go down a path here, but I'm going to.
All good.
What do you think has changed in you since you realize you don't have that fallback, and maybe your mom is that fallback to you, but knowing that, hey, I'm the man now. I know you have an older brother and things like that, but what has changed with you knowing that I no longer have my father in my life?
That's a good question.
So, you know, for me, I probably have it sounds really, really interesting when I think about it in my head, and I'm going to say it out
I don't
loud.
think we've ever talked about it, to be fair.
No, I think that.
Do
So
you
I
want to pause on that, and I can give my elaboration on how I had my last name changed while you think about that?
no. I because you shared that on the podcast, which I love that story, and I want you to share it. To answer your question, Spencer, I think that my relationship with my father, as I got older, as he got older, there, looking back, it has grown in a great way, and after his passing, it has continued to grow.
So how have you personally changed since it wasn't for in my world, you know, when, you know, I came to the wake,
Yeah,
you know,
we did.
and it doesn't seem
Thank
like
you.
3 years ago,
I know.
but it has been 3 years, and your life has changed a lot in the past 3 years. So you, as, you know, a man, what do you think has changed? How have you looked at life? Have you changed your perception? Be like, hey, I don't have that fallback anymore, or hey,
Well, that's the
this
thing,
is
so-
what I would do
right,
when
yeah,
I
yeah,
become
yeah.
a dad. Things along those lines.
So to answer that,
and as a new father, you know, about to be.
and I think it's fantastic. I didn't have, when you say fallback, there that wasn't there. That was never considered a fallback, right? So it was maybe take it for granted that people in your life are always going to be there, but there was never a fallback. It wasn't for me. My father was never, for a long time. I don't want to say never, but for a long time, was not a sounding board for a lot of things. I tried to bring him in, and like I said, later in my life, when I was in my early 30s, it became a little bit more than that.
You saw him as a person a little bit.
Well, so to Bobby's question about do I see myself in him type comment, I had more similarities in my last career, and there was more of, when he became a grandfather with my brother's kids, there was a more fatherly aspect to him that then translated to me, and I don't want to.
You got to see a different side.
Well, yeah, and I'm not going to get into it. It makes sense looking back at it. Some of the people that know me very well, that there was a reason for that. But I will say it wasn't. He was a bad dad. I look at it now as, when I say my relationship with him has continued to grow even after he's passed. There's a little bit of sorrow there that I don't have continued conversations with him where he can see what my life is transpiring to be again. But taking those conversations that I had way back when Chip was talking about it, and when I look at it now, is in the more recent years prior to his passing, the conversations changed, and I look at it as that I learned so much more from him than I realized, and now it's, maybe I don't want to repeat the methods that he used, but I can take those into account. And I think that is how I've grown since then.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, buddy. All you, Bobby.
I mean, okay, so
What's the? He said that you had said the story on the podcast before, but what? I do not know the
here's
story.
the 2-minute interlogue.
There you go.
So on
Bobby Bottle Service is your new last name.
popping bottles. For me, my biological, I always call it like sperm donor. I went through, he abused me.
Okay.
So I basically never, like, I know who my real,
Not the time, Nate.
I know who my real biological father is.
Okay.
My last name from him is Crow.
Okay.
So literally 2.5 years ago on my mom's birthday on May 1st, I legally changed my last name before I got married to Griffith.
Okay.
So actually my name is Robert Griffith now. So
The third?
no.
Okay.
My dad's the third.
My bad, dude.
James Lewis Griffith the third.
Okay.
I don't know why they always were so generic with white names.
Okay.
But when my mom remarried when I was 5, so I've always had my dad now as a fatherly figure. It took me probably until I was like 15, like right before, maybe 18, right before going into college, to fully like realize how toxic and like holding my dad to a different standard, because I was never appreciative. So I have such a great family. I have such great support. I am very, very lucky to have the support that I have in my family. And my dad is my blood, even though it's not my real blood. He's raised
It's your DNA.
His morals, his guidance, how smart, how he goes through life, how he's worked from the bottom all the way up. We never really got to see, like, I never got to really, the more I challenged him, like you think I challenged you guys or like my friends, I challenged him more than anything growing up. And now having my dad now in my life, like it's the fact that I've been able to get 2 houses, the fact that I am married, the fact that I'm going to become a dad here in 2 months, 2.5 months. Like one of my fears are like, am I going to be a good father? Like, I don't want to like, I don't want to be like my biological sperm person or ever lose my anger or ever belittle somebody or take my time or my patience or have less empathy. So those are things I always strive on, even though I'm very, very opinionated and very stuck in the ways of this is my gut. No, this is wrong. I won't let those things up, but I'm more conscious now from my dad to make sure I'm balancing it. Like I said, I'm not running blindly into home plate per se.
Yeah, you're at least looking at your third base coach.
Because my dad now has been able to show me those ways.
Yeah.
Because I was a wrecking ball. I would just go, I didn't give a fuck.
Right.
So it's nice to have that structure now at 30, I would say through 25 to 33 to truly fully like understand where I'm actually growing and learning and becoming. I feel like now I'm actually becoming a man at 33. I've been a man child until these last few years.
I would second that.
And
Not well. Don't kick him.
no,
No, I've known him long enough that I mean, he knows that I had that experience with him 5 years ago.
Sure.
You know, absolutely. No, I think I have seen the growth in him. I absolutely embrace what he's talking about.
So when it comes back down to like when I'm asking you, do you see yourself in your father, or when I'm saying like how like I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to take away or trying to adapt before becoming an actual dad,
right?
All fathers or best friends or whoever your core groups are, they want you to be you. If they truly are in your court or behind your back, they want you to be better. They want you to be the best that you can be. And they're going to tell you how it is. And for me, it's like, if I never got to meet your dad, I wish I did. I really wish I did. I really wish I was at the funeral. I really wish that I know he was a great man, because obviously you're a great man.
I appreciate you saying that.
And even though I don't always agree with how you attack your life situation sometimes, the fact that you talk about it on the podcast, the fact that you open up to your audience, the fact that you contemplate those things, it shows that you're actually growing and you're open. You have an open mindset to those things. I think if without knowing your dad, if your dad was here, yes, he would be very happy that you've gone to this
proud
point.
as shit. Yeah.
He'd be proud as shit. But I also think that your relationship would even grow even more, because maybe during his generation, he wouldn't have been able to open up that way.
Right. Yeah. No, he'd probably say to me, and I'm not talking down.
He'd be like the red.
Like, no,
he'd be like red on.
No, he'd be like, "You still doing that internet thing?" Thank you, Jonathan. I was trying to think of how he would say it. He's like, "So the podcast, that's still a thing, that, like out there, and you're doing it." But that's what I think of actually. Jonathan saying that is that's the constant growth that I was saying, is that more recently, I think now he probably would say, is that, how is that going? Growing up, it would have been best intentions. It's so what's going on with this Wednesday night thing you're doing? You know what I mean? It was like not a challenge, but it would be like, it would be that kind of, are you still doing that internet thing? Not trying to belittle it. Now, me at 15, 18, 21 years old, I'd be like, yeah, Dad.
Screw you, Dad.
Yeah, Dad, and it's doing really well. I get this many views. He's like, cool. What's it doing for you? I'm like, solid point.
Well, I mean,
now going back, I'd be looking at me like, fuck, you're right. Now I got to do something with it. You know what I mean? Like that.
But that's I guess that's where I want to carry on to that.
You still getting drunk on Wednesdays? It's probably what he'd say.
Not only Wednesdays, Dad.
No, I'm making a life out of it. Wait a second. God damn
It's a lifestyle, Dad.
It's one of those things that he had a way of saying something about that, like what Chip had.
Yeah.
It was like Chip said, he realized it 20 years later. I don't think that my dad and a lot of these fathers, and I Bobby, I think you'll probably be the same way, that you're going to be saying stuff, but you want your kid to learn for themselves. You don't want to give them all the answers, because I'll tell you, like, we don't listen.
You want to push them though.
Yeah, but you don't. But you also realize, I remember one time I stood up to my dad in my family room because he was saying something.
Were you lifting at the time?
I was lifting, but I was also like 145 pounds.
I wouldn't have done shit to that.
No, it was. Well, I remember that incident where it was like, I was not a rebellious teen, but when your parents or your dad, especially, are they're saying something you're doing is wrong, it's classic teenager thing. They're not listening.
They don't know anything.
It's the same thing that in a sense that, my dad to Chip, not his father, but if his dad, who is also a coach, who I refer to as coach to this day, honestly, that I would listen more as a 15-year-old. I'd listen more to Coach Waddell, and Chip would listen more to Coach Crane. It was just how I think that's how it works a lot of times.
What I want to say to my point though of the whole thing is, when you're saying that, he would be proud of you.
No, you said that.
Well, yes, but you agreed. You'd say that you would be able to be at a certain point. You guys would be having a better conversation about where you're at. Okay. I don't think your dad would stop there though. I think he would still be like, why are you still talking about certain things? Why are you holding on to first or second before you're even going home for 3 years? Why are you? I think as a point of a dad that he's going to keep trying to push you. And I think that's one thing about any fatherly figure or getting over the hump.
Sure.
That you don't want to get complacent in the sense of, I am doing better than, like, if you ask me and my dad right now, he's like, my dad didn't own a house until he was like 34, 35.
Okay.
Like the fact that I'm going to have two houses, not saying I'm not better than my dad, because I still have so much to learn from him.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if he was, I have the memory of if he died tomorrow, God forbid, I would still have so much that I'd be able to learn from him right now.
Yeah.
That's going to keep me going, because just because I have more things doesn't mean I'm successful.
Correct.
So I think in a sense that I feel like, even though not knowing your dad, he would still be pushing you to kind of get you past those other things that you might be overthinking.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. I think it's different. I appreciate the sentiment there, but I also,
and I'm not trying to like.
No. It's cool, and I want to bring it back to Spencer here. Is for me, I think that it's something that my personal life. So my dad would be happy that, full metaphor, that I'm still playing baseball, which I'm not, but I'm saying, like, metaphorically,
Because of COVID.
no. My point is that he he still came out to the softball games. That's what that story that's kind of glanced over is that my brother and I played softball together into our 30s, right? And we played in our hometown. And I'm not
Gary,
kidding.
Indiana.
No, we were from Chicago. You don't talk about like Gary's not that great of a place.
So you guys played together in Westerville.
Yeah, we played together in Westerville. And I got to tell you, my dad, who was still involved very much in the Westerville Little League, you know, after we were long gone from that program, my mom and dad came out to watch my brother and I play. So that's where I look at it is that, to your point, I get what you're saying, Bobby, and I'm not disagreeing, but I'm going to tell you from my personal experience is that the topic tonight is
not looking back.
Take the turn and go. There is also an aspect of it is that you're going to still have the ups and downs, no matter what they might be. It's how you handle it, but you're still playing the game. And I know that's like a deep metaphor in my mind, and maybe it's falling on deaf ears, but I look at it as that if you're still playing the game and now you're learning from those failures where you held up at third. And for me, with like my relationships, with my job, with you're talking about the podcast, I think that what I've learned from my dad, and I think the relationship, for better or worse, has gotten stronger after his passing. Is that he's happy that I'm still playing the game. I'm still doing something that is affecting other people, because those were some of those conversations that he and I had in the last several years. Is he wanted me to, as Nate says, you're still stepping in the batter's box. You know what I mean? He liked the fact that I was still trying to do better. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about anything. It was diving down into it and translating what he wanted. It's what I think what you're saying, and I hope you're the same kind of father, is that he wants. At first, it's I'm going to project on you what made me happy, also what didn't make me happy, and I got to teach you in my way. As I got older, and as he got older, and like I said, when the grandkids came in, there's another perspective where it is purely about happiness. It's about, are you happy? And it took me to realize that, getting divorced and then being happy on some aspects of my life, not being happy. To your point, it was those questions. Is like, what would he say? Right now, he would continue to push me. But I think the question that I when I go and visit the cemetery is that, you know, I don't have these in-depth conversations that some people have at a gravesite, but I look at it as that, in my mind, what he's asking me is not just, are you happy, but are you good with the path you're on? And maybe that's a self-projected challenge, but that's what I see.
I mean, because when
or
I
hear rather.
I mean, because when I'm trying to make sure I tie it into the subject, right? The topic is making decisions and steps and not looking back, right? I'm not saying, like, there's also, what's the word I want to use? You have to look back. History repeats itself. And in a sense of, you have to be conscious of the past, but you can't dwell in the past when you're running forward.
I think it
learn from your
reminds you.
mistakes.
Whatever.
Take the lessons from your past and move on and try not to repeat them.
Correct.
But if you keep looking back at your past, it could hold you back from your future.
Correct. And I, as one of your good friends, Steve, I think sometimes you're so close of just running. I see you so close of actually just running. I want to see you run.
You want to see him fucking sprint.
Like, you're so like.
So look, all right.
And and that's me just saying as a friend, because I'm like, you've done all these right things. You have all the support. You have everybody in the garage, your audience, everybody that tunes in, everybody that is supporting back and forth. You give a lot. I don't think you're not selfish enough sometimes that holds you back.
So all right, so let me turn this around to a point. This is not a intervention for me.
I'm not trying to bring
no, listen to what I'm saying though, is that what I like about this is that when I have to tell. So what I learned.
I'm not trying to make it.
No, listen. What I've learned from this, and there are a lot of times anymore, and I look at the growth that I've had, is
even from 3 years ago.
Right. So it's interesting with this podcast and people that listen in, and I do appreciate people like yourself, Bobby and Spencer, that have always been there for me. What I'm always fascinated with is that when I look around, when I look at some of the views on this podcast, Bobby, you said it, like, when you're like, you're making good money and all this stuff, and it's like that's not a true value of success.
It's not.
What I've learned is that yes, I would like to have more money in my bank account. I think anyone would. But when I look around this garage, when I've had conversations with people that are either tuning into this podcast or they're sitting at this table, and I don't know the reasons that, Bobby, when you're in town, you want to be a part of this podcast. Spencer, the same way, when you want to be a part of this podcast. I appreciate the support. But when I have self-reflection, I can't explain this shit. I can't explain why Shannon is sitting here after his new job, and what he wants to do is be here in the garage and literally say this out loud, sit in a chair, smoke a cigar. It sounds great. And also stare at and listen to three idiots talk about something in the microphones. Jonathan Herring from General Cigars, he's out of town, like he has nothing better to do. I get that, but no, but when he's in town,
the t-shirt is really screwing.
The t-shirt's
me up.
great. Yeah. So, yeah. No, but like you have Jonathan Herring. This is what the reward is for me, Bobby, is that when I go to bed at night, I have Shannon here. I have Jonathan, who is a work colleague, but also we have in-depth conversations, which completely goes way beyond a work relationship. And it's silly because a lot of times that doesn't even exist. And then I got Dustin here, new house, new wife, new wife.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks for bringing that up, Nate. No, but like he's got a whole, he did everything this year. And I also remember that there was 4 years ago, where none of this shit existed. And
had to be in the middle of working on the front lines with everything.
And he tells me that this is his night out. And then you have Nate, who works 2 jobs that he has 1 day off.
Is this the second job?
This is the 3rd job.
Okay. I was going to say.
Then you have Sean, who we met through kind of the group. And then all of a sudden he's now in my neighborhood. And now he's over here every Wednesday night. And this is his night out.
I'm here working.
And he sits here and he listens to the podcast and is on his phone. So this is the thing, is like, I don't know how to put money on that, but I invest my time based on all this stuff. I got to tell you, today, I've said it before on the podcast, it's been a while, but like I came home from work. I wasn't feeling great. And I set an alarm for 6 p.m. because I laid down with my new dog. And it was very frustrating to me that I had to do this podcast tonight because it started feeling like work. So for me, my reward is that this whole thing where you take the turn and go is you just fucking do it.
Yep.
And because I know that I'm going to get something out of it, but the thing I really, really get out of this is the everyone in this garage.
Camaraderie, fellowship.
But it's not just my camaraderie. It's everyone. It's like
I don't disagree.
I realize that there's a level of responsibility anymore that if I told everyone in this garage, I told people that are listening,
I'm out.
And everyone would be fine. I'd be fine. You know what I mean? But it's like
there's a community. There's a community
to take that turn and go. There's that team atmosphere.
To be fair, you took the turn and go 3 years ago, and this thing started.
Correct.
And you decided that I might make it every day and things along those lines.
The reason why I ask my questions like that, it's not to have an intervention with you. I like to remind you of the purpose that you serve.
And I understand that, and I look at this as that when people
you are
ask
serving
questions,
a purpose.
well, when I ask a question, I realize that when other people ask questions, it's not only fulfilling the person you're asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a self-reflection thing.
That's all I'm trying to do.
If I had a, I envy you, Steve, and when Jake was on this before, because I was looking forward to this for a week.
Not so much anymore.
Because I get it.
Yeah, I mean, we had some laughs and some things like that, but you get to have a self-reflection every week, which that type of energy that you get to receive from other people, and you get to talk to titans in your industry. That type of reward that you receive is invaluable.
Yeah, no, I think this is all part of it, and that's what's. I've been listening. I've been participating in part 2 of this conversation, and it's when I wasn't trying to turn it around and say that it's not an intervention for me necessarily. Mm-hmm. What I've found in this podcast and tonight's episode specifically is that this outlet for what you're saying, Spencer, is something that
and it's an outlet for Bobby and for myself, by the way.
Well, and I think that's what I'm getting at.
Where else would we have these types of conversations?
You'd have it sometimes, but in the culture today is that I said earlier in previous podcasts is felt cute might delete later. There's no investment in what you say anymore.
I disagree with that.
I'm not talking about you personally.
No,
I'm saying
in general for people.
No, I think in general, I think that there is a no holds barred.
Send a tweet and just forget about it type thing.
But
no, I think there's not. I think that what we think about as sports fans, which is one of the topics that Bobby wanted to talk about, was the fact that the armchair quarterbacks on Monday morning, they have all the answers in the fucking world, and the only response that Tom Brady really needs to tweet out there is like, "How'd you do on Sunday?"
The man in the arena.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you can say all you want, but that's where I'm saying, like, these questions towards me, I love giving reflection because I really do. I get to get it out there. But what I love about having people on this podcast, whether it be like you said, the titans of different industries, you have the cigar industry and the bourbon industry,
the cabinet industry and the Verizon industry.
Yeah. Yeah, which you have not talked about the fact that you've taken over the family business.
All good.
I know. We're going to have that conversation. Okay. But my point is that I look at it as that I really enjoy this because it gives people an outlet, and I learn from other people. The only reason I would turn this conversation around is because I want to hear from you guys. These people that are listening and people that are in the garage, it's like, yeah, they may want to hear what I have to say, but I don't have an opportunity to have someone in from Texas all the time. I don't get to have Spencer on anytime I want because I get to call him and he will drop everything he's doing if I say I need to talk. But I know him well enough that anyone listening to the audio or on the video, one of the things I have one regret from this episode is that the viewers and the listeners haven't heard from you guys enough, in my opinion.
Then ask us questions. We'll answer them.
How big?
Whoa. It's not about
the house.
What's your square footage?
Both houses?
I think that it's more comfortable for people to ask questions than talk about themselves.
100%.
For me, I don't.
And I offer that up because when I framed the conversation tonight with that post from Chip Waddell, that did bring me in personally and entirely.
Yeah. So I think that might be one of the reasons why me and Bobby wanted to focus it, around your life experiences, because the story was around your dad. It wasn't around, our dads. And, I know your dad played a role, maybe not the ideal role in your life, but he played a role. And I think people get to know you on this podcast, and that's why people listen. Like, you are the constant on the podcast. So I think the more that people get to know you, the more they'd be like, all right, man, like I know that guy. So when I'm listening to it on iTunes, I'd be like, all right, I got a relationship with that person. I know where he's coming from, and I might not see Steve every, few weeks, but I know him. I know you better through this quarantine that I knew you 3 months ago, even though
what
we
does
only saw
that do for you or other listeners, though, is my question.
Well, I don't listen to stuff I don't want to listen to. I listen to 20 podcasts because I'm in the car, just like a lot of sales reps are, 8 hours a day. So I listen to people that I want to listen to. I listen to people that I don't agree with. I listen to people that I agree with. But I know you more as a friend, more as a person, through these, 2.5 hours, 3 hours a week. And that's why I listen. And that's why I really appreciated the one a couple weeks ago, was because I feel I know you like to play things down the middle. I know you don't like to go what religion is best, what political thing is best.
I cursed a lot that
but
episode.
to play things right down the middle is safe. And you're, when we have these conversations, an hour before the podcast, you don't play things as safe.
Correct. Yeah.
So everyone wants to know what your actual opinion is. No one wants you to hear, hey, yeah, that everything was fine. Yeah, the cigar was fine. The bourbon was fine. Yeah, I agree with you. Like that's fine to make everyone happy, but that doesn't actually tell you where you're from. And I think we're, it's a good enough group that we have the ability to not spite at each other. And hopefully Bobby doesn't give a shit that his bourbon wasn't for me. And so 2 out of 3 of us can take constructive criticism.
Bobby, was great seeing you.
But none of these are pot shots. But one of the cool things about the Zooms, and you guys do the cigar, was it Hefts, the cigar rooms and things like that.
Correct.
Is you can have different views and different conversations and respect people's opinions. You're not trying to change people's minds, but at least you kind of understand where people are coming from. I wasn't trying to change Bobby's mind about, his bourbon. I was just, here's my opinion, take it or leave it. And all right, like maybe he will, maybe he won't, but at least he hears another point of view of things.
And that's, for me, right, for the podcast, right, I listen to a lot of Gary V.
Right.
And so Gary V to me is, when you're talking about getting over, like driving forward, you got to put yourself out there.
Fucking do it.
Let's get it done.
Yeah.
And so where my point of views come in, like when I'm watching this podcast personally, it's kind of like, you know what? I just want to think about random things. Like I want to think about
I've seen your comments.
It's I like to see people's reactions. And the reason why I do that, and this is for the community. Like, well, I'm poking to see.
I love it, man. I was happy that he was coming on. I maybe have met you once, maybe not, but I was actually truly excited that
super memorable.
No, but I'm not trying to say that in a bad way. I like that that someone has an opinion and they have a point of view. Like for me personally, I want you to have an opinion. I want you to have a strong opinion. I want you to be open to other opinions, but I like that you have a point of view and hopefully are willing to at least engage in an intellectual debate.
And I will. At the end of the day, that's the whole point.
Oh, Jesus.
I will have the.
You gotta drink.
Oh.
At the end of the day.
Cheers, guys.
Did I say that? Or?
Wait, no.
Yeah, you did.
So
yeah, you did.
The Monte Cristo really
Monte Cristo.
Yeah,
new Crisco brand? Is a
new brand.
It's a newer brand.
Local.
Yeah.
All right. Really goes well with the blends, for the record.
It goes well with both bourbons, really well, and also the Weller 12.
Go on.
But at the end of the day, everybody drink.
Come on,
bro.
Because I didn't say it last time.
Do you have any whipped cream?
I like poking maybe that should be the next topic I'm on.
Poking the bear?
Poking the bear.
You are a bear and Stephen's a bear.
I don't know where we're going with this.
You know exactly where we're going.
I think you have a very good idea.
But I like poking the bear.
We got like 7 bears in the room.
Because if you can't respond well with how I'm poking, or that sounds horrible.
Go on.
If you can't respond well with how I press buttons.
I mean,
not that much better, but all right.
So many, like, can I put like 2 explicits?
How do you spell innuendo?
Bobby Crow. Bobby.
2 eyes.
Hey.
Go on. Bobby innuendo.
Come on.
Literally, come on. All right.
At the end of the day, go ahead. No, I said it. You don't have to drink.
I don't make the rules.
We're derailing.
You're making me laugh. if I can't get a judge of your character, or if I can't get you down to my level, and what I mean level is like without titles, without doctors, without whatever person you are. If I can't call you Steve, if I can't call you Spencer, if I can't call Nate, right? Then there's no chance of me ever being your friend, or it's no chance of me being able to talk to you.
Personal level. Yeah, absolutely.
And so my comments or my things is to be like, okay, let's look at it this way. Or, hey, this is my opinion on this, because I think that it can get really one-sided sometimes on a podcast, and I want to hear the audience's like comments. Like, I like being the person in the background poking those those things, because then I get to have a different dialogue with the viewers.
I feel bad I made fun of Ray when he was agreeing with me.
So
no, not at all. I mean, Ray is a good person that he tunes in every week, and I appreciate that. And it's a lot like you guys, that there's a personal connection there. But so Jonathan, who's in the garage, he's watching the feed, and he's still commenting. He's like, what the podcast does for me every week is makes me look inward. The podcast makes me think, quote, how would I react and what would I say? I think that's the engaging part of it, because to your point, Bobby, is that is so much easier for most individuals. All right, Jesus Christ.
Let it happen, dude.
You got fucking 12-year-olds on the podcast. It's gonna smell great. No, but I think that is the whole armchair quarterback thing. I think that people they feel more comfortable behind the keyboard. They also don't feel comfortable when people are telling them how to think.
I guess what I would need from you when I'm on the podcast, ask me the questions, I'll answer them truthfully. Like, that's, if you want my true opinion on something, ask me.
You have had no hesitation to talk tonight, and that's what I think that people don't always realize, is that when they have a mic in front of them, is that they may ask a lot of questions, but when you reflect back on this, or you watch it back or listen to it,
I asked a lot more questions than that.
You did, but you have no problem giving your opinion.
So,
and I think that's a big part of this, is that I think that is something that, I enjoy about this, is that there is a level of comfort that when we start this, and I do appreciate people being in the garage.
I think we're amongst friends and in the community, and I don't think people are trying to take people down and stuff like that. And
I'm absolutely trying to take everybody down.
Yeah. So here's
Bobby, can I see your glass?
Get on my level.
Got the bottles of whiskey over here.
I got other ones on the shelf.
Jesus Christ.
Are we doing final comments?
No. We're keep going.
Spencer, go with your final comments.
Okay. Here's where I'm going with this.
What do you want?
Okay. So obviously, first off,
my mom's turning in right now, actually.
Perfect.
So, and then Bobby said, so obviously,
this is Bobby's world.
Good show. Go ahead, Spencer.
So first off, happy Father's Day to all the becoming fathers, to the fathers that passed away, and hopefully everyone can spend time with their, cheers to all the hopefully people can spend time with their fathers or spend time with their kids who are listening. I'm going to go with the rounding third and head to home type thing.
Yep. Take the turn and go.
Yeah. Take the turn and go. For me, and I get that, Steve, this isn't your motive, but when you texted me this, you're like, yeah, this, and I think I texted you back, this is right up my alley. For me personally, to grow, I shouldn't say grow, for me to move on from certain things, I need to turn my head and go. I can't look back. You get, notifications by people on social media. It's this person's birthday. It's different people that have been in your life. But for me, I have to actually look at the people who are in my life right now. And for me to focus on the people that are in my life right now, I can't give any mental space to the people that were, and it's not a negative thing. They'll always be a part of me, but I can't give any mental space in order to give the people in my life right now the appropriate care and attention that they deserve. So it's not a malicious thing. It's not a selfish thing. It's how I need to grow and move on and deal with, the problem ahead of me.
I think it's a self-preservation thing.
But also if I'm going to take the next step, I can't take one step backwards. A lot of people say one step backwards, two steps back, one step forward. For me, I don't see the advantage of taking, 2 steps back. for me, I just want to take that step forward, learn from the step that was back, and move forward. But this tonight has it seems like, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that we've only been in this situation, and I feel like we need to talk about it just because it's out there. We've been in this quarantine, this pandemic, this whole thing for 3 months, but to a lot of people, to me personally, it feels more like a year. But because my attention span is so fickle. I can't just watch a movie. I need to be on my phone. I can't just watch my iPad. I need to be playing a video game or whatever it is. I need to be doing multiple things at once. So I think this whole situation, even though it's only been 3 months, because we need that constant, that quick, hey, do we have a vaccine right now? What's the count tomorrow? What's the count today? This 3 months has seemed a lot longer than an actual 3 months.
Correct.
So we have not been in this. I have not been in this garage for 3 to 4 months, and it seems like 3 to 4 years. So to be around, I'm serious, like to be around you two.
No, I think it's amazing.
Like I've been in a cigar shop, but to be around you two and to have people, not that, 6 feet, obviously social distancing away, that is very different. It's about 6 inches. Yeah. To be farther, to be in this type of environment, the world is changing very quicker than we've ever realized before. So for us to make decisions that will last a year, that could last 3 years, I personally made a conscious decision. Hey, I'm not going to dwell on things for 6 months that could be done in 3 months. I'm not going to hold on to things. I'm not going to fight a losing battle.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tread water.
This is a motivational period of our lives.
If hopefully people come out of this stronger and better and have learned a lesson, I obviously fear that not everyone has, but if you haven't learned a lesson, whatever that lesson is through this period, then that's on you. If you've just been watching Netflix and listen to podcasts, that's cool to take your time with that.
Podcasts if they want to.
Right. But hopefully people have grown throughout this and realize what's important, but also realize what's not important. So when it's rounding third and coming home, all right, let's drop the people that haven't checked on you during these 3 months. Let's drop the people that you realize that you don't need in your life. If they're not adding to your life, they're taking away from it. As we get older, I want less drama instead of more drama. So I am selectively, again, with Facebook, social media, things like that, you see someone's birthday popped up. If you don't want to wish them happy birthday, why are they in your life? What's the actual point of that? So for me,
if you're not going to call them or text them,
and if you are upset when you see something on their feed, then what's the point of it? So for me, rounding third and headed for home, I made that decision, when the guy was in the batter's box, I didn't make that decision when I'm on third base. I made that decision. Hey, let's go when the opportunity arises. So again, I do appreciate it. This has got to be close to like 10 episodes or something like that for me. And Bobby, I know you're always in the comments. I do appreciate your comments because you had a little flavor, you had a little bit of zest, and I appreciate that, man. You're like
hot sauce,
little sauce,
a habanero,
a little sauce, and everything like that. So I appreciate it. I wish everyone a happy Father's Day, but I do appreciate you guys and appreciate everyone who's in the garage with us.
Absolutely, Bobby.
Well said, Spencer.
Closing remarks.
At the end of the day,
no, Jesus Christ,
drink.
This is just absolute.
This is why I poured another glass.
That's
can you give him
it's a tonic and tonic.
He doesn't want
you're drinking.
He doesn't want the Duke.
I thought you wanted to keep on to the Duke.
No, I was going to do it with the Monte Cristo. Actually, I'm good with that. We'll see how it pairs, and I think you should do the same.
I already did.
All right.
How do you feel like the Monte Cristo?
Crisco is
I feel like I'm saying
lard type.
How do you feel like it pairs with the?
I think the pairing makes it like a 9.4.
I agree. I think this pairing is better.
It's exactly what it needed. It
lighter cigar.
It brought out the true flavor of the Duke to me, and it actually made it where the cigar was more.
You're holding on to the Duke, aren't you?
All right, Bobby.
Absolutely.
Closing remarks.
My Duke.
All right, Jesus Christ. All right, closing remarks. Bobby.
He's not going to help you.
I want to thank everyone tuning in tonight.
Jesus.
Go ahead, Bobby. I'm just fucking.
I just want to make that awkward silence.
We want to thank Matt Damon for tuning in tonight.
This is why I listened to it on. This is why I listened to it on 2-speed for the record.
Especially when you're on, Spencer.
Yeah, I got to, bro. A lot of awkward pauses.
I said that. Bobby, go ahead.
You ready? Okay.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in
At
tonight.
the end of the day.
Cheers. So when it going like rounding home, right? Going home.
Rounding third, going home.
Does he play baseball?
No, I don't play like a baseball.
Great soccer player.
Great Gaelic player.
Yep. People don't know what that is.
When you're going for the kick, I don't know.
No. Bobby, go ahead with the closing remarks.
Please.
Thank you for everyone tuning in this late.
Thank our sponsors.
I still have to say my closing remarks. You think they're tuning in for?
You can't give it like 3 seconds. Is that 110 proof really hitting anyone right now?
I want to thank all our sponsors tonight.
So for me, the closing remarks about heading to home.
Yeah.
You can't dwell in the past. You have to be reflective to the past. You have to understand where you're at. You got to look at the big picture. Like you said with COVID, it's been only 3 months. I have not paid attention to the news with COVID. I have not paid attention to the news with any of the protests. I have not paid attention to any of those other distractions. Not saying that they're not valid distractions.
Stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I support all those causes, right? At the end, I really do. And for me, it's, am I going to let those causes either slow me down with getting my house done? Am I going to let those causes slow me down with getting my new house moved
What
into?
actually affects you?
I need to have I already make my own distractions enough with commenting in the podcast itself. Right. So I am so focused on getting to the next step to make sure my wife has my support where she needs me at, so I can become a better husband, hopefully a great dad, to be there for my family, be there for my friends on top of those things. And rounding home for me is just keep moving forward. If that's with a new job with Verizon, hopefully if I get selected for the job, or if it's finishing the house here in the next week or so, if it's getting back to Texas in a week or so, I'm looking at those steps while being conscious of everybody else's and not letting those other influences overpower what my goals are.
Right.
And I think that most people need to sit back, reflect, and not let those other influences drive their behaviors, because nobody wants to talk about anything negative in life. No one wants to actually, if you're not bringing value or a better perspective, you're not going to have real true friends, because you're going to literally just keep pushing them out of your life because you're not going anywhere. You're paying stagnant. So to your point, like you're trying to get rid of the baggage or the drama or this and that. Like I miss Columbus. I miss some my friends, but sometimes when I went out with them a couple times, like am I really getting a value from that? I'll go to see them, but it's not pushing me forward. This podcast pushes me forward. Good. Steve pushes me forward. Nate pushes me forward. Sometimes Dustin. I don't know. but it's those distractions to me that I could see that people, when they're pushing pushing themselves forward, helps me push the round home.
Yeah.
And I think most people need to look at it like that in the big perspective.
Yeah.
To get to home base and go to the next, get back on the box and hit another one.
Yeah, you're still.
So it's rounding third and heading for home.
Yeah, but you're rounding. But once you complete,
you can't be rounding.
I'm not. I love the fact that you're not a baseball player or a baseball fan. You're still rolling with it.
You got the gist of it.
He's trying.
It's good. No, it's actually, you're very relevant, and I think you have such amazing points. I wish I understood soccer better, because he's a soccer player. You're a soccer player. I wouldn't be able to contribute to this conversation.
It's kicking third. And
it's going into overtime, win the game, and then go to the next round.
That's right.
And for the next round, for your Cubbies, right?
Extra time.
They got to the 7. They made it to game 7. They won some freaking way.
Well, by the score, yeah. That was World Series champions.
Too soon.
The point is,
Go Cubs. Fly the W.
No.
Oh, yeah.
at the end of the day,
God damn it.
Why?
Jesus
I
Christ.
mean,
I don't know why. You had to drink to this, too. You can't just say it and not drink.
at the end of the day,
You can't say it twice.
He
That's,
did. I don't make the rules.
get yourself around home, get yourself back in the box.
Can we do
And-
something when he says that?
You gotta watch more baseball when
Fuck you guys. Get yourself up to the bat again and again and again and
No, I can
complete what
see
you need
that.
to do.
Yeah, that's
Because
it.
if you're just completing one goal, that doesn't mean shit. It doesn't. It doesn't mean shit. Just
You're
because you
absolutely
completed one fucking thing, good for you. Here's your fucking trophy. Fuck that shit. What's your next thing? What's your
100%.
next fucking move? If you're not looking at your next fucking move after rounding home, you're failing.
Absolutely.
And I don't care what anybody else thinks about that shit, because good job. Fuck you. What's next? Let's get past that. And that's what you
Move
need
forward,
with
right? Yeah.
COVID. That's what you have to do with whatever protests are. It's what you have to do, whatever you have to do with your life. Just get yourself to a point where you're actually contributing a good thing, where people can learn from you
Yes.
and contribute back and forth with you, so you can collaborate and actually get to the goals that you ultimately want with your group of people.
Yeah.
And that's literally what I want to see from this world, from this audience, from this fucking cast, from this fucking group, is how are we going to help each other get to that next step? Because if I'm not going to respond to any of those fucking posts, I don't care.
I love the fire.
Over under?
If it's on the podcast page, he's absolutely gonna.
Yeah,
respond.
100%, right?
If you're a random friend of Bobby Crow, he's not gonna respond. So
Talk about the protest for a little bit, Steve. if you will.
I'm not gonna do that. So Bobby, first things first. Next time you're in Columbus, we're gonna go to a Clippers game and watch some baseball, and I'm gonna have an old fashioned catch with you because this was a big part of it. No, I actually appreciate it. What's funny? He brought up Gaelic football, is Irish football. No, Bobby, like, one of the things that I was terrible at Gaelic football because I can't kick a ball. I last time I played soccer, I was 5 years old, and I got the win.
You got to lift legs at some point, Steve.
Prove it. All right, so thank you, Shannon. So what I'm going to say is that I absolutely understand what you guys are saying, and Bobby, you're.
Is that real?
This
Drink.
is the worst podcast ever.
This is the best.
All right,
podcast in the world.
so here's what I'll say is
this is like
that
Tenacious D song. This is the best podcast in the world.
all right.
Should have finished strong.
So tell me more.
let me tell you about baseball. In
What about
baseball,
Gaelic?
hang on a second. In
We're-
baseball,
we're-
follow with me.
I'm just gonna keep doing what you did to me.
It's fine. It's not your podcast. Still, start one and I'll follow in. With baseball, you have
Soccer, football.
a first base coach and you have a third base coach. When we go back to this whole thing about take the turn and go, I feel like it's easier to, as a kid playing baseball, that you think you know better.
Yep. You're right.
I got questions a lot tonight from Spencer and also Bobby about my dad. I've been listening a lot tonight. I introduced part 2 with Chip Waddell's story about my father. What I'll say is that the one thing that we have not talked about tonight is that the importance of listening to your third base coach. And one thing that I alluded to is that, as I've learned tonight, is that Bobby, Spencer, Sean, Nate, Dustin, Jonathan, and Shannon, and everyone listening out there is your third base coach. You have to open up your ears and you have to open up your eyes to that person that is seeing the big picture. They're not running the bases. They're not swinging the bat. They're the old guys.
I like where you're going with this, for the record.
Thank you. They know the game. And
They see what's happening.
There's
And-
too many metaphors right here.
no, you might learn something. Is that if you listen to your third base coach about taking the turn and going like Chip did, is that you'll figure out that train of thought. we can, like, you guys asked a lot of questions tonight in part 2 from me. Ray Cheshire's back on. I appreciate that. And what I think about is that all the third base coaches I've had in my life that I didn't listen to when I was rounding third. But keep the metaphor going to a point is that how many people do you know in your life that when they're older? So we're all in our
How many people do you trust that are on the third base coach?
20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, however old you are listening to this, is when you talk about that game, where if I would have done it differently, if coach would have put me in, if I would have gone home, we would have won that game. I think that it's keeping your eyes and ears open to your third base coach in life. And I know it's a deep metaphor, but I think there is a lineage there that when we're going through those decisions, if you just put your head down and don't listen to the people that have the bigger picture in mind, they see the whole field. They see the fact that the ball's already been picked up and it's on its way. And now even Siri's trying to get in this.
It's a good point.
No, I think that it's something that when I look at this is you guys asked me, well, how would my dad react? I think he acts the same way. It's because when it came down to baseball, there's less emotion involved, and there is the actual fact of the fact you are either that ball is coming. So you either if there is a coach on third base holding their hands up, which means hold. Bobby, I'm telling you this, that's what that means. But if they're saying go and they're swinging their arms, there is a level of trust there. You have to get past yourself and what you think is best, because you are actually in the heat of it, that you can't see the bigger picture. So I'm not saying you go home. I'm not saying you stay at third. I'm saying listen. And that's how I look at it, is that with this whole thing, take the turn and go. Chip saying that stuff, he realized it 20 years later. And this is something that don't wait for 20 years. Just open your ears, open your eyes. And if you have a third base coach, if you have a sounding board of like, Josh Bentley, who's been on this podcast several times, he has this board of directors.
I like that.
If you go to them and you are rounding third and like, what do you think? And they're like, I tell you this, and this person tells you this, and you have like 8 third base coaches, and you're like, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm just going to go home. Or if they're all telling you to go home and you say, I'm going to stay at third, what's the point?
Don't ask for the 9th coach either.
Yeah, no, I agree. But my point is that
that's a good point, Steve.
Yeah, you take the turn and go. In baseball, the biggest part of it is that you are supposed to, as you are coming from second to third, if you're out at home, it's because that third base coach told you to go. And you are sprinting. And as you're coming down past the shortstop, they're saying go. You are rounding a different way, and you are going balls to the wall to home. And then you're now looking at your dugout as you're at a corner of your eye, and they're saying down. If you don't slide, same thing. If you are going at it and you just roll through that and you just go through and then you're out because you didn't slide, it's listen to people around you because they see the bigger picture. But my point is that, to your point, Spencer and Bobby, I appreciate you being in my life this long. I've had a lot of people tell me in my life that they know I know the right answer, and I've held on to it to make sure that I am making everyone happy. But going forward, what I want to do, and I challenge everyone to do this, is that you listen to your third base coach.
What if you don't have a third base coach?
You always do. There's always someone there. There's always someone there. That's the thing. No, I got to tell you, there's always someone there. And if you don't, you got to look. Because if you got your eyes closed as you're running into third and you're rounding third and that ball is in the field, you only have the third base coach if you're looking at that person and they're going to tell you what to do. If you listen or not, there is a lot of trust in that person.
Maybe the third base coach is your gut too. Maybe.
You can do any metaphor you want. I'm saying that there's always a third base coach, and I think you have to actually you got to watch that person and you got to trust that, and you just go. You guys both on this podcast tonight, I think you guys actually follow your gut and you follow the things that are ingrained into you, and that is your third base coach. And there is a part of me that sometimes that I think I know better. And I know I'm not alone out there in this is that you always second guess that third base coach. So taking the metaphor all the way to the end, I think that Chip really hit it on the head where when it came down to a life decision, he took that metaphor to the ground and he didn't realize it in his words until 20 years later that you have a third base coach in life that's telling you to take that turn and go. And for better or worse, you're better or worse being safe or out at home than you are being safe at third and the game is lost. And I'm going to leave that for you guys. Cheers. Thank you very much. Sponsors, everyone, Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, Cigar Company, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. All you guys in the garage, this is what it's all about. Everyone out there, I hope you guys had a good time. Share, like, enjoy, more importantly. Cheers. Awkward silence.